The story opens in the area of a military camp. Inside a tent, the silhouette of someone could be seen sitting and wiping a sword, accompanied by a narration, "This sword is proof of my loyalty, and the master of that loyalty is none other than Lord Atlas, whom I swore my allegiance to." The sword was raised high as the stream of thoughts continued. My entire existence is defined by this single sword. Zeno's face didn't reveal any emotion. From outside, someone lifted the curtain and stepped in with a call, "Zeno." He immediately stood up, his dark hair swaying gently in the breeze. Zeno dropped to his knees before Atlas. "On this side," the Lord sternly declared, "we march at dawn." The order followed, "You will take the vanguard and break straight through the center of the enemy formation. Bring me the head of the enemy General Garzus. For the glory of the Arclight House." Accompanied by a threat, "Don't disappoint me." Zeno didn't show any expression, but he was reminiscing about the past. "On that snowy day, Lord Atlas took me in. When the two of them first met, Zeno was on the brink of death and was given a reason to live. His eyes back then were utterly blank. However, Zeno also learned one thing: this life belonged to Lord Atlas. Up to the present, he was closing his eyes. When his eyes opened once more, Zeno quickly answered, "As you command." Hearing this, Atlas was temporarily satisfied and left the tent. Left all alone, Zeno tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword. The battlefield was immensely brutal for him, yet Zeno slaughtered everything in his path. The enemy even used horses to charge. But Zeno's face didn't show the slightest trace of fear. He stood face to face with them. At this moment, Zeno silently thought to himself, the ones leading the charge, on their faces, was an expression of utter contempt. "Everything I have built for the Arclight House." Zeno's legs suddenly gave out, buckling beneath him while he continuously coughed up blood. His vision grew increasingly blurred. "A loyal blade forged by etching it deep into my soul." But his mind remained crystal clear, condensing it all into a single point. A name was uttered, Peerless Phantom Flash. The shadows of horses appeared with Zeno right beneath them. As he swept past, everything was cut down. The other soldiers on the battlefield took notice. "There it is! That monster's swordsmanship! That isn't a sword style belonging to our Arclight family." But the very next second, Zeno suddenly vomited fresh blood. He collapsed to his knees, only to be met with nothing but disdain from those around him. "Stay back. You'll be tainted by that filthy thing." Zeno's eyes widened. His whole body forced itself up upon hearing the noise. Ahead of him was another troop of soldiers. The second wave of attack. Zeno gritted his teeth, thinking inwardly, "This is bad." His hand gripping the sword tightened. "I can only unleash at most one more Peerless Phantom Flash." Right then, Zeno turned his head backward. The place he was looking up at was high above. Up there, Atlas was watching as well. Zeno easily caught the order from a mere nod of his head. His lips pressed tightly together. Zeno was forced to keep moving forward, "As you command." Zeno's body could no longer hold its ground, even if this life had to be sacrificed. Behind him, Atlas was watching. Zeno used every ounce of his remaining strength to break through the encirclement. All for Lord Atlas. At this moment, the Lord was thinking to himself, "Just as I thought." Atlas's eyes were locked onto Zeno. That obnoxious golden light was beginning to leak out. Then he raised a hand to signal the rest, "It's time. If it goes beyond this point, he won't be a tool anymore." Along with that, Atlas pulled out a black piece of paper. "Do it." An evil aura instantly emerged. A piercing sound echoed out. Zeno was struck down with undisguised bewilderment. "This is the dark sealing array. Why?" he kept asking himself as he cast his gaze backward. A strange mark had appeared on Zeno's neck. It ravaged his body and caused Zeno to vomit blood. Everything was getting progressively harder. An enemy combatant raised the weapon in his hand high. "Too bad for you." He barked at Zeno's face, "You monster." Not a single person stepped in to help, and he just like that lost an arm. The opponent gloated maliciously, "I'm merely fulfilling a promise to your master. If you want to hold a grudge against someone, blame him." This time Zeno was completely stunned. Lord Atlas did this? What is this supposed to mean? Footsteps could be heard approaching. It didn't take long for Zeno to realize. Atlas's tall figure appeared before him. He spoke unhurriedly, "Zeno." Zeno's eyes reflected Atlas's expression, while the Lord himself coldly declared, "Your role ends here." Zeno gritted his teeth in agony and challenged him. "Why, Lord Atlas?" His hand clenched tightly as he tried to call out, "No, Father." Little did he expect his words to be instantly rebuked. "Don't misunderstand, you orphan." Atlas coldly added another statement, "I have never once thought of you as my son." The brutal truth finally laid itself bare before Zeno. Even if just for a second. Atlas continued to elaborate. "On that snowy day, I looked into those lifeless eyes of yours. He recalled Zeno's despair back then and candidly shared his thoughts. This guy will make a good tool. All Atlas did was give him a reason to live, and he would remain as loyal as a dog. And you would become a convenient sword. His expression shifted slightly as he went on. But for a tool, you were crafted a bit too perfectly. Atlas remembered what happened in the past, that abnormal spiritual power since childhood. Alongside his own efforts, I did everything within my power. He constantly sought ways to restrain it, to suppress it until now, but it seems I've reached my limit. Atlas still spoke in an even tone. The light from earlier is the clearest proof of your overflowing energy. He took a few steps forward and added, I decided that it was only a matter of time before you bared your fangs at us. Hearing this, Zeno honestly shared that. I would never even think of betraying you, father. Never. His voice was heavy with despair. Atlas decisively severed Zeno's remaining arm. His subordinates replied with utter coldness, You're too noisy. Atlas chimed in as well, Zeno, I will tell you one last thing. The meaning of that name within our family. He looked down at him with the gaze one would use for an insect. It means a disposable sword. At this point, all the subordinates burst into laughter. Meanwhile, Zeno was struggling to move. He used even his face to drag himself forward. When he got close enough, Zeno spoke up, This life. Atlas coldly watched and listened, and this sword as well. I dedicated all of them entirely to you. Suddenly the sword was picked up. The soldier and Atlas himself were both startled. Zeno actually used his mouth to grip the sword. Light began to emit from his eyes as he initiated the technique. But before he could finish a few words, Zeno collapsed. He fell flat onto the ground and lay motionless. Only then did the remaining men break into a gloating smile. Scared the hell out of me. They relentlessly mocked Zeno, stupid monster. While deep down he was thinking, the very first reason to live I was ever granted was merely to become a tool and nothing more. Meanwhile, the rest of them were eager to take his life. Just die already. Zeno bitterly realized he had been exploited and discarded. His body was gradually giving up. What on earth have I been doing all this time for nothing? A melody played alongside a sincere emotion, so warm. Am I in the afterlife? Raising his head, Zeno caught sight of a crest flag. It belonged to the Elminster family, the strongest family of mages on the continent, and a hand appeared before him. Are you awake, honey? Celestia, with a bright smile on her face, my precious little baby. Baby. This title left Zeno, now Lucius, thoroughly confused. Baby. He glanced down, and caught sight of his own tiny hands. Lucius wore an expression of astonishment and kept asking himself, what on earth is going on? Speaking of the divided empire, the Arclight house where swordsmanship was supreme, and the Elminster house where magic was considered the ultimate power. Along with that, it was said that the founder of the Elminster family created an entire continent with a single spell, and possessed spiritual energy rivaling the sun itself. At this moment, Lucius thought to himself in a dazed haze, how ironic. Never did I imagine that someone who dedicated his whole life to the sword path would be reborn into a completely opposing family. He closed his eyes and sensed something unusual within his body. It instantly forced Lucius to open his eyes. His expression grew taut as he thought to himself, this feeling, that's what they call spiritual energy. Surging forth in an endless torrent. Lucius frowned, thinking inwardly, it's the true power beyond imagination that was stolen from me in my past life. The corners of his lips curved into a smug smile. Looks like the heavens haven't abandoned me yet. He began to list, a flawless environment, the greatest bloodline, and limitless spiritual energy. I will make use of everything I have. A goal was also established to carry out his revenge against Atlas. Lucius smiled darkly, calculating cautiously, but to do that, I first need to take absolute control over this family's entire power. But what appeared right before Lucius's eyes were two children's toys. All the servants had gathered before Lucius. They were all beaming as they treated him. We prepared this specially for you, young Master Lucius. A thorough explanation was provided. This is a special baby food made from sap harvested directly from the world tree. The chef slowly brought the straw closer. Come on, open wide. But before Lucius could get a taste, another servant interrupted. No, young Master Lucius, look at this glowing rattle instead. All the maids stayed up all night infusing our spiritual energy into it. The light radiating from that item was so blinding that it made the other maids worship it in awe. The two sides clashed in intense rivalry. At that moment, a gentle hand touched Lucius. Celestia cradled her son and warned, quiet down, everyone. You're going to overwhelm little Lucius. Her voice was incredibly tender, right, Lucius? While her hand kept patting Lucius's head, his gaze turned complex as he instinctively reminded himself, don't misunderstand. The painful memories of his past life were recalled. An orphan like me, and Lucius was firmly convinced that all the affection they were showing him was simply because of his latent magical talent. He felt a sharp pang of pain as he reminisced about the past. I know myself too well to harbor idle hopes for things like that. However, Celestia and the servants were overjoyed witnessing Lucius's growth. The young master rolled over. The young master did it. My lady. Meanwhile, he muttered to himself, I will simply make use of this environment to serve my revenge. Night quickly fell over the castle. A whole week had passed since I was reborn. Right now, Lucius was sitting on the bed drinking milk. And within these short few days, I had realized something. Yet his expression was intensely taut. The magical prowess and educational methods of the Elminster family far exceed my wildest imagination. Lucius recalled everything he had received. Just a single bottle of milk contained a massive amount of spiritual energy. He spent most of his time by his mother's side, and an observation had been made. The rules of magical incantations were naturally woven into their soothing lullabies. Lucius was constantly surrounded by experienced servants. He set his milk bottle aside and thought to himself, I'm still not used to acting like a newborn baby. But next, Lucius raised one hand and calculated, perhaps it's time to test my current strength. He closed his eyes, beginning to sense the true essence of the illusion technique he had mastered in his past life, based on condensing all his power into a single point. He whispered to himself, just like what I did with my sword back then, the streams of energy are constantly shifting. I will perfectly control every bit of my current spiritual energy. A burst of light appeared, leaving Lucius astonished. That light gradually became blindingly intense, and spun completely out of control, piercing right through the mansion. The servants were all startled simultaneously. Both Celestia and Fran wore looks of sheer amazement. That light was so dazzling it dyed the entire sky blue. Meanwhile, Lucius was already lying exhausted on the bed. I never expected my spiritual energy to change this much in just a single week. Even he himself hadn't anticipated it. Unbelievable. But following that outburst of power, Lucius quickly drifted off to sleep. As long as I can manage to completely control this thing. On the other side, Celestia was rushing desperately toward his room. She flung the door wide open with a loud cry, Lucius. There was clearly a loud noise just now, but the only thing that greeted Celestia was silence. Celestia slowly stepped closer and gazed tenderly at her son. He's sleeping so soundly. Fran draped a coat over her shoulders and asked, so was it just our imagination after all? Celestia murmured as she watched Lucius. I wonder what he's dreaming about. Time flew by quickly. On a fine day, Fran pushed the door open forcefully and called out in a panic, My lady. Her face could not conceal her anxiety. Bad news, the royal family. But before Fran could finish her sentence, Celestia cut her off. Calm down, Fran. What is it? Despite her advice, the other's voice still betrayed her urgency. A delegation escorted by the royal guards has just arrived at the mansion gates. It's an inspector serving directly under the crown. Lucius, sitting in Celestia's lap, also grew alert upon hearing those words. An inspector. At this moment, she murmured with a puzzled look, why would they come to such a remote domain without any warning? And right when the head of the house is away, too. Lucius listened very carefully and made his own assessment. I see. They must have detected my spiritual energy outburst last night. This is starting to get complicated. Very quickly, a group of people had gathered. Sitting on the chairs were none other than Celestia and Lucius. The large doors were pushed open. She politely stood up to greet them. The visitors slowly stepped inside from the outside. Celestia's face betrayed no emotion. Valerius stopped before her and called out, Lady Elminster. He quickly stated his business. We can skip the pleasantries. I am here bearing an imperial decree. Valerius's gaze locked onto Celestia and Lucius. Last night, the Empire's spiritual energy monitoring network detected. The story was recounted in detail, an unprecedented torrent of spiritual energy erupting from this very domain. An anomalous phenomenon on a scale perhaps seen once in a millennium. Then, he opened his palm. The source of that spiritual energy is right here. The targeted location was none other than inside the Elminster family's mansion. The servants instantly began murmuring in an uproar. No way. Where could it have possibly come from? Valerius further added, if our inspection results determine this energy source to be a threat. He didn't forget to attach a threat along with it. Then according to imperial law, we will proceed to cleanse it. Everyone wore worried expressions. Impossible. Valerius brushed past Celestia while finishing his sentence. It is our duty. An item was retrieved from his hand. Acting as the chief inspector, Valerius slowly raised it high. He moved the orb around the room with an absolute declaration. The energy source is definitely somewhere right here in this hall. Very quickly, the orb began to emit light. The beam of light pointed straight at Celestia. Valerius's voice was low as he called out, "Lady Elminster." His eyes pierced into her as he requested, "Would you mind stepping over this way, my lady?" Though anxious, Celestia could only comply. "I understand." A maid took Lucius from her arms with a call, "My lady." But Celestia gently reassured her, "It will be fine. Please keep an eye on Lucius for me." Valerius extended his hand forward. "Pardon my intrusion." The orb was pointed toward her. The stream of light revealed that it was not coming from Milady. His eyes couldn't hide his confusion. "Where on earth is it coming from then?" As if answering that question, the orb glowed once more. It moved faster and faster. The beam of light shot out with immense force, and the target locked onto none other than Lucius. This sight left Valerius rooted to the spot. His expression was one of sheer shock, his eyes glued to Lucius. The radiating light grew stronger and stronger, to the point that the orb shattered into numerous tiny pieces. Valerius was horrified, his voice rising a few notches. Could that energy source possibly be? Not only him, but both Celestia and the servants were equally stunned. Everyone cast disbelieving glances entirely at Lucius, this newborn infant. The room echoed with Valerius's cry of disbelief. "Impossible." He stared at Lucius and continued, "A magical artifact that even a first-tier mage couldn't destroy, shattered to pieces by mere mental pressure alone?" On the other end, he was also watching the opponent with an extremely guarded expression. Valerius spoke further while stretching his hand forward. "If that's the case, I will link my soul directly." One of his objectives was to see through its true nature. Little did he expect his effort to suffer backlash almost instantly. This was beyond Valerius's expectations. "What is this?" Meanwhile, Lucius remained completely unaffected. This soul. The more Valerius realized, the more astounded he became. The sheer volume of spiritual energy was so immense that he felt as though he couldn't even reach its core, feeling as if he were staring straight into the sun. Valerius's eyes widened, his expression deeply complex. At this moment, he caught sight of something unusual. "What on earth is that?" His dazed state was interrupted by Celestia's voice. "Chief Inspector, what did you see?" Valerius answered her without haste. "The duty of the Empire's royal inspectors," his voice rang out evenly, "is to prevent a prophecy recorded in a single historical text. A book written during the dawn of this very empire." An example was listed. That book prophesied the greatest calamity the empire would ever face. And Valerius mentioned one thing: the one who carries an abyss curse within a sacred soul will ultimately summon a great catastrophe and plunge the empire into darkness. He explained in meticulous detail, "What I just saw inside your son's soul matches that prophecy completely, without a single error." This time the one taken by surprise was Celestia. "No way." Valerius placed a hand on his chest as he continued, "The curse dwelling within his soul is the spark that will ravage the empire. In the name of the authority of the royal crown," he issued a declaration, "before it has a chance to flare up, I will extinguish it right here and right now." Hearing this, Celestia and the other servants changed their expressions. Even Lucius himself heightened his vigilance. His hand behind his back was preparing to channel magic. A sword was drawn. But before any clash could occur, Celestia spoke up, "Please wait." Valerius and his men were startled into taking a step back. It turned out she was casting magic herself. "I will not allow you to lay a single finger on that child." Seeing this, Valerius coldly asked back, "Are you saying you wish to defy the laws of the empire?" Celestia simply replied with utmost politeness, "A single tear shed by my child carries far more weight than the laws of the empire." Her firm stance was clearly demonstrated. That was the meaning of motherhood, and it successfully elicited a startled reaction from Lucius. Across from her, Valerius was also ready for battle. "Are you truly prepared to bear the consequences?" He summoned his blue magic. Both sides were ready to hurl themselves into a fight right then and there. However, Valerius's hand, which was radiating blue light the second before, suddenly quieted down. This sight astonished everyone present. Questions began to arise. "Chief Inspector, surely you don't intend to actually let them go?" Valerius sounded grim as he repeated those words. "The law." He turned his head and headed straight outward. "The law commands me to uproot the seeds of disaster. But will a sapling nurtured in such profound love truly blossom into a catastrophe?" On this side, Celestia had not yet lowered her guard. He stopped in front of Lucius with a declaration, "I've decided that I want to witness it with my own eyes." Lucius was also watching him with extreme vigilance. Then Valerius turned his head back and called out, "Lady Celestia." He addressed her previous resolute choice. "You had the determination to turn your back on the entire empire for this child," and solemnly stated, "If that is the case, I will also share that burden with you." This remark was entirely unexpected by Celestia. As he turned around to leave, Valerius didn't forget to add, "However, should this child happen to stray from the path, we shall bear this responsibility together. Do we have an agreement?" Then he and his men departed from the place. But before the door closed completely, Valerius issued a final warning, "Don't forget it." Finally, he left completely. At this moment, Celestia let out a breath of relief. But the truth was her body was trembling. The next second, Celestia dashed forward. She rushed swiftly toward Lucius. Her trembling hands cradled Lucius's tiny face. "Thank goodness," she repeated over and over. "I'm so glad. I'm so glad, Lucius." Celestia couldn't help collapsing to the floor. "I'm just glad you're safe." "Thank goodness." Tears streamed down her face one after another. Celestia hugged Lucius tightly to her chest. This action made him think even more deeply. On the other side, Valerius's subordinate questioned, "Are you certain about this?" He simply answered with absolute decisiveness, "Yes. Report this to His Majesty." Afterward, he added with a smile, "Tell him that we have found an exceptional talent, one who will bring immense benefits to the nation in the near future." Time passed in the blink of an eye. 12 years later, right now, Lucius was standing alone practicing magic. He spun around to deflect the rays of light flying toward him. The training grew increasingly harsh. "More, give me more." Lucius closed his eyes to sense everything, pushing his mind to its absolute limit through extreme tension. His train of thought developed, the closer one gets to the abyss of death. Graceful footwork as he spun a few times. Opening his eyes once more, Lucius silently declared, "The more your power is elevated." The training ended right there. Lucius's whole body collapsed with exhaustion. From below came Celestia's voice, "Lucius." She worriedly continued, "You're pushing yourself into that kind of reckless training again." Hearing this, Lucius slowly stood up. He stepped 1 foot forward. "I'm fine, mother." Then let his body fall freely to the ground. "After all, I've been doing this every single day for the past 12 years. Celestia and Fran both looked worried upon seeing this action. However, Lucius used magic to maneuver himself, after which he landed on the ground with absolute lightness. Lucius did not forget to wear a satisfied smile. Fran angrily scolded in a loud voice, "What are you smirking triumphantly about? The moment you let down your guard is the most dangerous time. I nearly died 3 times during my days as a magical knight because of that." Lucius didn't bother to fight back, already too used to it. I know. While the two of them were arguing, Celestia on the side merely watched silently. 12 years already. Lucius's gaze shifted and became much more serious the very next second. Fran softly called out, "Young master." Lucius remained lost in thought. Every single day throughout that time, an item was handed out by her. "This is for you." Lucius accepted the letter with utmost reverence. "Then read what was written inside." The news provided made Lucius feel extremely pleased. Everything was in preparation for today. Because that was the invitation letter to the Royal Academy selection exam, the Royal Academy where talents from all over the empire gathered. And on another note, the valedictorian graduate of this academy would be granted a blessing that surpassed human limits. And even Atlas Arclight, who had graduated with top honors in the past. In his past life, Lucius had witnessed Atlas's ability. Lord Atlas Arclight back then. Lucius looked at him with an expression of immense admiration, also possessing a power far beyond human understanding. "No problem." Lucius tracked him without blinking even once. The wound, his hand holding the paper tightened. To attain a blessing powerful enough to confront him, the first objective had been set. First, I will seize the top spot at this academy. Time passed and the enrollment day arrived very quickly. The students' gathering area was extremely noisy. Up above, Celestia and Fran were together. Down below, Lucius had moved along with the other students. The nobles were seated in a separate section. His gaze was one of supreme focus. A powerful voice echoed out, "Order." There was even a high-ranking official observing, right here and right now, the Royal Academy selection ceremony. A command was issued at that very moment. "Will officially begin." A deeply solemn declaration was uttered. "We will now begin the selection ceremony." Meanwhile, Lucius was observing everything with a highly guarded gaze. The equipment for the selection was laid out, accompanied by the explanation. "This year's exam will consist of defense and suppression." Lucius quietly listened as the opponent explained, "While ensuring the safety of the rare dead eggs flying around you." The headmaster further added, you must suppress the attacking magical beast, the crystal lizard. The evaluation of your exam results will be carried out by the objects floating above your heads. The appearance of that dragon threw everyone into confusion. Next was another item, the scale of judgment, evaluating the protective capacity to shield the eggs and your suppression capability against threats. The explanation was given right after. Based on these two evaluations, patterned weights will be added to the scales. Passing or failing will be decided by the total number of weights placed on the two pans. The explanation concluded here. The exam will begin shortly. All examinees please move to. The space shifted to the examinees' waiting area. The nobles began to buzz with chatter. Hey, look at that, it's the cursed child of the Elminster family. All of them cast hostile glances toward Lucius. If it weren't for the leniency of the royal inspectors 12 years ago, he'd be dead by now. There were plenty of others watching as well. However, Lucius focused solely on one thing. The trial began to get underway. The first challenger, Lilia Magnate. She appeared and chose a friendly approach to deal with the dragon before her, turned to ashes. Lilia poured her full power into attacking that dragon. Everything was reduced to ashes. The result was read out by that scale, suppression grade A, defense grade D, a pass. Lilia observed and clicked her tongue with mild dissatisfaction. The command continued to be given. Next, this participant had the result of defense grade A, suppression grade C, pass. He himself let out a sigh of profound relief. The testing continued. Next, the examinees all had their own strengths, and each did their utmost to carry out the test. Next was Hector's turn in the trials. Next, Hector Gilbert. When he appeared, murmurs broke out. Look, it's Lord Hector. People offered all sorts of remarks. Word is he's the new generation prodigy of the royal swordsman. Meanwhile, Lucius on this side merely observed quietly. Rupert, a noble family he had never heard of in his past life. Hector drew his sword and silently declared, no need for those tedious parlor tricks of the mages. He concentrated all his might on the dragon ahead, the sword of our house. His hand began to draw the weapon. Hector spoke with solemnity. Simply cut down the target in silence. The slash was utterly decisive and Hector didn't even bother to watch the dragon. However, it was struck down, while the eggs remained safe. Hector sheathed his sword. The result only shattered a single egg. The scale began to shift. The giant dragon's body was sliced in half. His result was announced as suppression grade S, defense grade A. He was currently standing in first place. The onlookers were filled with admiration, just as expected from a prodigy. I didn't even have time to blink. It was finally Lucius's turn to compete, the final examinee, Lucius Elminster. The moment he appeared, the spectators whispered, there he is, the cursed child of the Elminster family. How disgusting. The words directed at Lucius showed not an ounce of respect or politeness. After Lord Hector's overwhelming display, this act isn't even worth being a pathetic opening show. Who knows what on earth he plans to show us? Yet Hector watched him with extreme caution. The dragon below had begun gathering power to attack. Celestia and Fran were so anxious they couldn't sit still, and those who had already taken the test also watched with contemptuous expressions. The dragon looked upward and spewed a beam of light. At this moment, two men were chatting with each other. Headmaster, how do you think a first-year student can handle an area of effect attack like that? The headmaster muttered and presented his view. Normally, the standard method would be to deploy a large-scale defensive array beforehand, to protect the eggs. Meanwhile, Lucius had yet to make a move. He only quietly watched those rays of light, and suddenly leaped high into the air to the dragon's own curiosity. Both the headmaster and the man beside him were taken aback in unison. Lucius began to execute his magic. His body moved with the fluidity of a dance. This performance forced the headmaster to think to himself, unbelievable. He stroked his long beard, evaluating inwardly. He didn't chant any incantations, let alone set up defenses, and that wasn't even spells, merely pure elements of spiritual energy. Yet he can manipulate them flawlessly with extremely precise control. A comparison was drawn by the headmaster. It's as if he's catching every single raindrop in a pouring rainstorm. Meanwhile, Lucius was intensely focused. Beams of light emerged from his fingertips. On this side, the dragon was also gathering energy to strike once more. However, Lucius was faster. The ray of light from his two fingers aimed straight at the center of the dragon's body as a command was issued. Stop. Lucius relaxed his hand right after. The dragon remained motionless rather than being killed. Its heavy body crashed down onto the ground. The scale shifted once more. The grandstands were so stunned they didn't utter a single sound. The results were gradually appearing, but then the scale began dropping items in massive quantities. This bizarre sight left the audience, and the earlier examinees exclaiming, "No way!" Lucius merely stood quietly in one place. An illusion quickly manifested across the arena. After a brief calculation, the final result was finally delivered. Achieved grade S+ in both defense and suppression. Elminster. He is this year's top-ranking student. Everyone present in the stands was thrilled by this accurate verdict. Naturally, among them were none other than Celestia and Fran, little young Master Lucius. Even so, alongside those rejoicing appeared those filled with resentment. Lucius also shot a sharp gaze to return that hostile attitude. A moment passed, and the silver-bearded man standing above the grandstands spoke loudly. "We will now present the medal to the top-ranked new student." Everyone fell silent waiting for his decision, among them Lucius as well. Without letting too much time pass, the silver-bearded man knitted his brows with stern gravity. A medal unexpectedly materialized in his hand. Its green radiance flew forth, wrapping around him. Understanding the gesture, Lucius gently dropped to one knee, and the medal was pinned to his chest accordingly. He said nothing, merely half-closing his eyes to feel everything unfolding. And then the headmaster spoke up to announce, "The award ceremony concludes here. Starting tomorrow, your academy life will begin." Following those words, all the students dispersed as well. They quickly moved toward the main gates of the academy. The sorting of students went quite smoothly. First-year students head to the right. Room assignment lists have been posted on the board. Check your room and then move to your quarters. At that moment Fran cleared her throat a few times to clear her voice. She officially let go, expressing her true emotions. "It is deeply regrettable that we cannot witness the young master's heroic bearing with our own eyes. But we servants will live day by day looking forward to the day we see how much the young master has grown. We will always be waiting." After that emotional display, Fran returned to her usual polished composure. "As soon as the young master's admission was confirmed, they asked me to relay these words." Lucius felt somewhat helpless but didn't forget to send back his appreciation. "Thank you. Tell them I will do my best." Saying that, Celestia reached out to touch her son's face. "Are you truly going?" She gently pressed her forehead against his. "Even if I tell you not to push yourself too hard, you probably won't listen anyway. I pray for your safety. Please don't forget that there are many others doing the same." He smiled, though somewhat queerly. "Yes, I know, Mother." However, Lucius didn't linger for long either. "I must go. Fran, please take care of Mother for me." No sooner were the words spoken than he directly turned around and headed straight forward. The two people behind couldn't see Lucius's sharp gaze. Placing first in the entrance exams was a favorable start toward graduating as valedictorian. He thus stepped into the designated luxurious dormitory building, but right next to it was a gloomy and dilapidated row of houses. Lilia couldn't help shouting angrily, "What on earth is this? The top student gets to live in a place that looks like a palace, while we have to stay in a dump no better than a horse stable, and share a room at that." Lilia seemed all too familiar with this matter. No need to make such a fuss over it. She calmly played chess while Lilia was breathing fire all over the place. "Don't go setting fires." Suddenly Lilia swiped her hand, knocking over a chess piece on the board. "The absolute best part of this academy is that we can seize the top spot at any time." Very soon, the first class got underway. Lucius sat quietly amidst the whispering murmurs. "Hey look, it's that cursed fellow. I wonder what kind of cheating trick he used to become the valedictorian. It must be curse magic, right?" Hector beside him felt somewhat annoyed whenever anyone intentionally acknowledged Lucius's ability. What if he's actually someone really good? At that, he would lock a bullet-like glare onto the person. "Don't be stupid, that's just a cheap trick." At the same time, someone was silently observing from the rooftop. Inside, Hector still acted angry even though Lucius didn't care much. That entire scene had been completely observed by the person on the roof. A passing breeze caused his cloak to flutter, and then with a light spring, the man vanished. Returning to the classroom, a boy named Noah muttered to himself, "He's here." Lilia glanced over crankily. "What?" Near that spot, Hector was still quite sore when mentioning the entrance test. "If this were a real battle, my sword would have." Before he could finish his sentence, the man from earlier flashed past him. "Gilbert boy, cast aside that useless fighting spirit. It's unnecessary for my lecture." Suddenly having someone meddle in his business, Hector snapped his head around to glare. Without thinking twice, he retorted, "I don't know who you are, but I have no obligation to listen to you. Even using disrespectful language, do you perform those cheap parlor tricks and think I'll be intimidated?" Thus other students chimed in with Hector's mocking joke. "Are you just trying to make a flashy entrance? As an Empire-certified teacher, you don't have a shred of dignity. The man merely observed everyone's attitude in silence. He felt somewhat helpless at the contempt displayed by the students. Suddenly the man extended his sharp-clawed hand toward Hector. I'll only say this one more time. That hand flicked lightly alongside a removal spell. Instantly the entire classroom had to endure a terrifying, breath-choking pressure. Hector's whole body involuntarily leaned forward. What on earth is this horrifying pressure? Even Lilia felt immense suppression. Is he a monster? However, one person caught his attention. Turns out he can endure this easily. As for Hector, he was trembling continuously. Seeing the punishment was enough, the man instantly dispelled the magic. You'd all better remember this well. He paused for a beat and turned forward. The man lowered his voice to give a reminder. Academy life begins from now on. With each measured step, he emphasized further. Bloodline and family background. The final word being that they completely mean nothing at all. Saying this, the man removed his hood to reveal his identity, Valerius. His eyes swept across every student as he asserted that strength is everything. Suddenly Valerius's brows knitted slightly, stopping in front of someone. Lucius also inadvertently caught that probing gaze. Finding it rather amusing, the corners of his lips curved upward. Valerius officially declared, "Then let's begin." Valerius stood on the podium, introducing himself in a chilling tone. "My name is Valerius." He looked at the unfamiliar faces in the lecture hall and continued speaking about himself. "I am in charge of basic theory at this academy." Lucius sat in the lecture hall listening to Valerius speak, and upon observing him closely, he felt a sense of familiarity. That guy. He recalled meeting Valerius, the inspector from back then, when he was a child. Lucius observed Valerius meticulously and evaluated him inwardly. I never expected him to be a lecturer at the Royal Academy. Truly deserving of someone who reports directly to the Empire. His spiritual energy is impressive. He raised his slightly sharp-clawed hand gently, making a solemn announcement. First of all, to all of you, I will teach you the rules of this academy. Valerius cast a spell emitting blinding blue light onto the students sitting here. Your ultimate goal is to graduate as top of the class. He introduced to all the students what he had just done in the classroom, that crystal is the academy leaderboard, displaying the rankings of every student in the school. Everyone looked around showing clear curiosity at the magic Valerius had just performed. What is that? Our names are written on it. Seeing the students' curiosity, Valerius continued to explain further. This academy leaderboard is based on your classes and missions. The results of all your activities at the academy. The students' rankings surfaced. 50 Lucius Elminster, 51 Hector Arclight. He added what the students cared about most, will cause rankings to change in real time. 71 Noah Raven, 72 Lilia Magnate. Finding herself losing to a nobody, Lilia shouted angrily, just who on earth is Noah? The illustrious backs of the top students faintly emerged in his words. To graduate as top of the class means breaking into the top 16 of this academy leaderboard and competing in the tournament held once every 4 years. The Academy Duel Tournament, and winning there. The winner of the tournament will become the top-ranking student and can receive a special blessing. Hearing these words, Lucius couldn't help clenching his fists. A student sitting at the back of the classroom stood up and voiced his inner resentment aloud. Do you mean we have to maintain our rank in the top 16 for 4 whole years? Then we won't even have time to rest. This student held a rank near the bottom of the class, number 400. Standing stunned beside his name, that number 400 gradually increased to 421, leaving him utterly shocked. Valerius stood on the podium and coldly uttered something that terrified everyone. Naturally, complaining and whining will also be evaluated as part of your capabilities. You'd better watch your words and actions. He created dolls bearing pitifully low rankings, and this was the most important part. Once a year, the 125 lowest-ranked students, regardless of the reason. Valerius paused for a moment and warned the students in a cold voice, while crushing the low-ranked dolls in his hand, will be forcibly expelled from the academy. A male student with flowing long white hair realized the reason the academy always maintained balance. So this is how they maintain balance between incoming students each year and those who get weeded out. He raised his hand toward the students sitting here and asked a routine question. Have you all understood the harshness of this academy? Valerius lifted the blue orb in his hand, enthusiastically kicking off the new school year. Now let's begin our first lesson. The blue orb in his hand slowly rose and emitted an ominous black aura throughout the crowded classroom. Hot-tempered Lilia shouted again, "What? Teleportation magic again?" Lucius calmly watched his every move. The white-haired boy could only resign himself. He really is a monster. In an instant, everyone was teleported to a more open place. Lucius cast a glance at the situation behind his back. Behind him, a strange path radiating a faint blue hue caught everyone's attention. Valerius looked emotionlessly at the students and presented the first assignment to these newcomers in this fiercely competitive academy. Now once again, this is my first lesson. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked toward the path, speaking concisely. The task is simple. Valerius took steps along the path harboring many unresolved mysteries. You must completely cross this bridge within a month. He walked away, leaving behind the baffled, astonished remarks of the students at his back. Huh? Is that really all? This piece of cake will be a breeze. Everyone scrambled to go first. Only Lucius stood in the distance silently observing the situation. I'll go first. A bridge like this is nothing. Me first. The ponytails-wearing girl standing behind Hector spoke up cautiously. Lord Hector. He also sensed something was wrong with the assignment, so he stopped the girl behind him before she could continue speaking. Now, wait. Everyone was full of vigor, racing to run onto the bridge ahead. A blond young man placed one foot on the bridge and immediately felt something was wrong. Before long, that bad feeling arrived. He was shocked, numb all over. The shock from earlier had drained all of the blond boy's strength, leaving him unable to stand firmly on the bridge and causing him to fall. Before falling completely off the bridge, Hector, who had been watching all along, issued a warning. You'd better stop. He looked at those hesitating before this dangerous bridge, saying seriously, unless you want to share the same fate. Everyone stood frozen watching the blond boy fall down the cliff without being able to do anything. The person covered in a hood panicked and spoke up. What's going on down there? Lucius watched him leisurely walking on the bridge and understood his scheme. So that's how it is. He frowned, analyzing the hypotheses he could make. Turns out this is a bridge that drains the spiritual energy of those passing through. Isn't that right? Valerius had walked halfway across the bridge. Sensing the anxiety and fear in his student's eyes, he spoke up. Didn't I already say so? My lesson is about basic theory. Strength is the foundation of everything. Try to accumulate enough spiritual energy required to cross this bridge within a month. The students were so tense they stammered as they cautiously asked him, Excuse me, Instructor Valerius, about that, what has been the success rate of this class historically? Valerius didn't turn back as he asked in return, You ask why? He calculated for a moment and gave a figure that would make anyone's head spin with shock. In a normal year, I'd say about 20%. Anyone hearing this number momentarily didn't know how to react because the success rate of crossing the bridge seemed far too low in their eyes. Suddenly he tilted his head slightly, saying sinisterly, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Valerius turned around, facing the highly tense students, not the success rate. He amusedly watched every reaction on each person's little face. The survival rate is 20%. Everyone buzzed with discussion about this near-zero survival rate. What should we do now? There's no other way besides increasing our own spiritual energy. Lucius stood silently amidst the noisy crowd. Everyone discussed ways to survive together, but can we really manage to boost it within just a month? Lucius's eyes flashed with an initiative. No, that's not it. He thought back to the blond boy from earlier and tried to find a solution. Based on that spiritual energy absorption rate, he looked at the estimated length of this sturdy bridge, and given the bridge's length, even someone possessing massive spiritual energy wasn't guaranteed to make it to the other side. The corners of his mouth bloomed into a bright smile. The manifestation of truth was gradually unfolding in Lucius's mind. Making us accumulate more spiritual energy is just a smokescreen. Now, he held the key to crossing this bridge effortlessly in his hands. I've figured out how to get through this lesson. All the students looked at the narrow stone bridge spanning across the dim abyss, surrounded by mist and gloomy air upon hearing Valerius's cold announcement. The survival rate is 20%. A blond male student upon hearing this stood frozen and repeated, a 20% survival rate? The female student beside him continued, Are you kidding me? Then that person who just fell. The atmosphere became extremely tense. The students could only look stunned, their faces turning pale. A purple-haired female student collapsed, clutching her head and shouting loudly, Damn it, I can't lose my life in a class like this. Meanwhile Lucius maintained a calm expression, silently observing his surroundings. Another brown-haired male student turned back, saying with a shaky voice, I can't do it. I'll ask my mom to withdraw my admission application. Valerius watched each person give up and leave. He mocked, That's a wise decision. Those whose wills get broken at this level would only meet certain death on the battlefield anyway. Valerius's ruthlessly cold attitude divided a group of students into two extremes. One side bowed their heads in deep thought without daring to speak, while the other glared at him with intense anger. Valerius stood in the middle of the bridge, surrounded by twisting purple magic aura, shouting loudly, Now you have a month to train. Suddenly a golden board appeared in the sky. That board displayed the remaining time for the test. As soon as he gave the order, the students rushed off in a hurry. Start training. Lucius just stood still watching Valerius, his gaze flashing with a sense of danger. Some students were hurriedly running as the golden board announced 20 days remaining. Lilia darted forward at wind-ripping speed. She advanced while shouting, not caring that she was colliding with surrounding students. Other students became annoyed and criticized loudly. "Hey, that's too dangerous." Lilia panted heavily, covered in sweat, but was still calculating in her head, if the output force isn't enough. 3 other male students were racing to carry huge rocks for training. A brown-haired male student looked to the side and suddenly shouted, "What?" It turned out Lilia was single-handedly lifting a boulder several times her own size to train, causing the surrounding ground to shake and making other students lose their footing. She concluded, "Just lifting 10 times the current weight will do." Lilia wore a triumphant smile, extremely confident and excited with her own deduction. Elsewhere, Hector knelt on one knee, his hand touching the ground. He looked toward the distant misty mountain. Hector focused intently on observing and made a guess. That bridge. He swung his arm to throw a rock toward the bridge. The rock bounced step by step. Hector's gaze remained fixed on the movement before concluding, "It seems when the contact time exceeds a certain limit." The rock that was just thrown was immediately enveloped by a strange purple power. This proved Hector's hypothesis. A type of curse would be triggered, causing spiritual energy to be drained instantly. His gaze turned serious, promptly making a decision. Hector lowered his body, one hand gripping the hilt of his sword, maintaining a ready posture to draw his blade. Enveloping him was a fierce red magic aura like blazing fire. Instantly he lunged forward, the compressed air mass creating a super-strong force blowing away dirt and rocks beneath Hector's feet. He cleanly sliced a tree down to just its stump with nimble speed. Hector's expression turned smug with his current strength. He was certain that with this power he could win the competition. The golden board showed 3 days remaining. Contrary to all the students striving to run here and there trying to enhance their own strength, Lucius still sat motionless in an open patch of land. Lucius focused on the method he had devised. "I found a way to pass this test. And what's needed to execute it isn't spiritual energy." He channeled energy between his 2 hands and concluded, "but the technique to manipulate it." In his past life, to be able to fight with just a meager amount of spiritual energy, he had mastered meticulous control down to the cellular level, through precise repetition like a thread and needle. Lucius recalled his past life when he mastered that ability. He escaped the slash, splitting 2 wooden human figures in half. "I created illusions. But because that power was too strong, it backfired, causing Lucius to vomit blood." He literally dropped to one knee, going through the boundary between life and death countless times. Returning to the present, Lucius continued channeling magic into the center of his palm, silently concluding, "With this spiritual energy control from my past life, applying it to magic is a piece of cake." Other students looked at Lucius. Although half the time had passed, he still sat motionless in one place. They speculated, "Look at that guy. From the first day until now he hasn't done anything besides sit stubbornly in one place." Another student followed up, "Did he give up or something? He must have used mountains of money to cheat in the entrance exam." They decided to ignore Lucius and dragged each other off to continue training, their mouths still endlessly mocking. Noah stood on the side hearing everything. "Even if he's a member of the Elminster family, he's still just a child of the curse. That arrogant pretty boy's time is up." She looked toward where he sat, not knowing what he was thinking. The golden board displayed 2 days, 65 minutes, and a few seconds remaining. Lilia shouted while swinging a huge tree trunk everywhere. The board currently showed 1 day, 9 hours, and 5 seconds. Hector continuously honed his own skills. He wore a triumphant smile, extremely confident in his own strategy. Near the final deadline, all the students began heading toward the gathering spot, which was also where Lucius was sitting. Lilia glared at him resentfully, silently assessing inwardly, "That guy, did he really just sit there resigning himself to fate since day 1? Yet he's supposed to be the entrance valedictorian." Everyone just walked right past Lucius like that. The time remaining slowly ticks down to 3 seconds, 2 seconds. At this moment, he opens his eyes. When the countdown hits 1 second, Lucius flashes a mysterious smile. The moment the glowing scoreboard indicates that time is up, Valerius instantly appears mid-air. He gently plants his feet on the ground and speaks up. "All right, the time limit is up." Valerius stands on the other side of the bridge, with only a few students remaining on the opposite side. His gaze sharpens as he commands, "Show me the results of a month's training. Who will be the first to cross?" Amidst the noisy bickering and pushing among the students, Lucius stands up. "Who's going first?" While the students are still buzzing with discussion, Lilia and Hector inch closer to the bridge. "You go." You go. You were confident enough yesterday. Both of them stop in front of the bridge at the same time, and say in unison, I'll do it. Hector shoots a threatening glare. No, I'm faster. Lilia refuses to back down and fires back. Huh? Are you deaf? He turns away with a nonchalant look and says, never mind, let me go first. Lilia yells in fury, huh? In a situation like this, shouldn't we play rock paper scissors? Any idiot would know that. Amidst the noisy atmosphere, Lucius wears a triumphant smile, giving off an immensely dangerous and overwhelming vibe. Eventually, Lilia and Hector decide the order through rock paper scissors. She emerges victorious and takes the first spot. Hector stares at his paper hand sign and trembles with rage. I can't believe I lost. A blue-haired student watches the two of them cheerfully playing rock paper scissors like it's nothing. He thinks with jealousy, even though I worked just as hard today. He slips past the two of them and announces, I'm going. Lilia grinds her teeth in outrage and screams, then what was the point of rock paper scissors? Following that, a few other students sprint after him. She stands on the side, screaming in exasperation. The moment those students who rushed forward earlier step onto the bridge, all of their spiritual power is instantly drained, leaving them to despair and howl in agony. Hector casts a look of contempt at the stupidity unfolding before him and remarks, idiots. One by one, the students tumble down beneath the bridge, and none of them manage to cross. A few who are still holding on up on the bridge mutter in frustrated complaint because they can't take another step. His spiritual energy amount should have been enough. Damn it! Valerius watches the students fall one by one and thinks to himself, it's useless. The real answer to this exam doesn't lie in spiritual power. It's about being faster than the bridge's absorption rate. A person must continuously refine the spiritual energy within their body to overcome it. Mastering the fundamentals of spiritual refinement, that is the way to pass this exam. No more students step onto the bridge. Seeing this, he speaks up mockingly, what's the matter? Still no one across yet? Another student asks in confusion, what do you mean, what's the matter? We'll die if we fall down there. Lilia instantly shoves her aside and charges toward the stone bridge. Move aside. She stands in front of the bridge for a moment, then takes a deep breath. Lilia's eyes are filled with determination, ready for battle. She channels the power surrounding her body and steps directly onto the bridge. Suddenly, a burst of orange-red energy erupts around her like a blazing, raging fire. Valerius watches the energy surge from afar and evaluates. That's genuinely an impressive amount of spiritual power. But the energy that flared up just a moment ago suddenly begins to slowly fade away. Lilia starts to look exhausted, gradually collapsing. Wisps of purple magic slowly wrap around her. He closes his eyes, calmly deducing that Lilia is only capable of this much. Facing the curse of this bridge, which sucks away all of the target's spiritual energy, then Lilia stomps hard onto the stone floor, and her power surges back up once again. Valerius opens his eyes wide, completely caught off guard by this turn of events. She channels the power around herself once more. The energy flares up into a blazing fire yet again. Then Lilia growls, don't look down on me. Against a bridge like this, I won't lose. Watching her push herself to dash straight across the bridge, he mutters in admiration. This girl is amazing. Pure willpower alone is allowing her to force out a massive amount of spiritual power exceeding the bridge's absorption rate. Just like that, Lilia makes it all the way across the bridge. She stomps her foot hard next to Valerius and, as if completely drained of energy, faceplants straight onto the ground. She pants heavily, struggling to roll over. Lilia looks up at him, and even in her exhausted state, she sports a smug smirk and delivers a provocative taunt. How do you like that? Valerius maintains a completely unfazed expression and says coldly, you passed. Lilia beams with excitement, raising her hand in celebration. Awesome. Hector is still standing on the other side of the bridge. He evaluates Lilia, so inefficient. That's only going to hinder her in future battles. Hector recalls the time he spent training and the moment he threw that stone. From what I observed, right before the spiritual energy starts draining, there is a brief window of opportunity upon initial contact. He grips the hilt of his sword and makes his decision. In that case, Hector assumes the stance to draw his sword, building up energy around his body just like Lilia did. I just need to not give it the time to work. Then he darts straight past the other students at astonishing speed. Just like that, Hector glides across the stone bridge in a flash. The wisps of purple aura can't even touch a fraction of his body. Hector even manages to talk while moving, as if my sword could ever be touched by some pathetic curse. As he approaches Valerius, Hector directly swings his sword horizontally, cutting through the air inches away from him. He wears a smirk identical to the one Lilia had earlier, immensely proud of his special technique. Valerius remains expressionless, still able to offer an assessment of Hector, charging all the way across without giving it time to absorb anything. Quite a groundbreaking train of thought. I'd love to say as expected of a genius, but he clenches his fist, his claws still unsheathed behind him, and delivers a reprimand. However, attempting to murder your instructor is unacceptable. Hector brushes it off and talks back, "Stop slandering me. More importantly, don't you have anything else to say?" Valerius says concisely, "You passed." He smiles smugly and replies without a hint of courtesy, "Obviously." The students on the other side of the bridge are still marveling. "Too fast, I couldn't see a thing." Truly worthy of a genius. Lucius slowly steps onto the bridge. Lilia, Hector, and Valerius all intently watch to see how he manages to cross. A student speaks up. First up is the top-ranked student. They watch Lucius walk across the bridge calmly, neither as fast as Hector nor erupting with raw power like Lilia. The surrounding students murmur in confusion, but he doesn't look like he has that much spiritual energy. He doesn't seem able to use physical enhancement like Hector either. Valerius simply smiles, his eyes fixed intently on Lucius, his expression expectant of a breakthrough from him. "Now, what will you show me, Elminster?" He steps onto the stone floor, and suddenly a flash of blue energy sparks beneath his feet, and after that, absolutely nothing happens. Lucius walks across smoothly and effortlessly. The other students are utterly shocked. Amazing. He's walking across with such a completely calm expression. So taking first place wasn't just luck after all? Lucius seems to radiate a bright white aura as he passes by the fallen students who are still bound by the purple light on the bridge. Lilia can't help but wonder, what's up with him? He looks so ordinary and totally unremarkable. Valerius doesn't answer, instead thinking to himself, a textbook answer from someone who figured out how the bridge operates. Just like that, Lucius easily walks all the way across the bridge. He closes his eyes, filled with disappointment inside. "Looks like I expected too much." Suddenly, another student manages to run across the bridge, shouting in cheerful excitement, "I did it! This is the result of my training." The students on the other side start shouting too, making Valerius snap to attention as if realizing something, exceeding expectations. "Hey, we can cross normally." Students flocking over rush across the bridge, everyone thrilled and patting themselves on the back. "Look at that! Of course, because we trained so hard. We did it." Lilia is surprised too, but pretends to be unfazed as if she expected it all along. They're surprisingly competent. Hector evaluates as well, finding confidence through mob mentality? What idiots! While the students are racing across, he speculates silently, "No, this is." Valerius turns his head to look at him with a look of utter astonishment, simultaneously with his own refinement. He channeled an infinitesimal amount of spiritual energy, just enough to prevent the curse within the bridge's complex magical circuits from triggering, something that hadn't been undone for 1,000 years. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes from the bridge. A student asks, "What's that noise?" Lilia and Hector can't hide their looks of surprise either. The bridge suddenly explodes. According to Valerius's deduction, he has dismantled the magic formula of the curse itself. A massive explosion goes off right behind Valerius, sending smoke, dust, and debris flying everywhere. Faced with this horrifying spectacle, he remains remarkably calm and praises him inwardly. "What a monster! I never thought he'd go this far." Meanwhile, Lucius acts as casual as if nothing even happened. As the smoke and dust slowly clear, murmurs begin to rise excitedly. Was it just old and falling apart? If we were even a second slower, we'd be goners. A brown-haired student clenches his fists in relief and cheers. "That was way too close, but at least we made it across." No sooner has he finished speaking than another male student nearby chimes in with a gloomy tone. "But what about those people?" His gaze clearly reflects sorrow and disappointment as he utters the next words. "The ones who fell first, they tried their absolute best too." The atmosphere plunges into a chilling silence for a brief moment. Suddenly, Valerius snaps his fingers. He calmly speaks up to reassure them, "Don't worry." In the blink of an eye, the fallen students from earlier are lifted up behind him. This unexpected sight causes the grieving male student to panic and scream, "What is this? Aren't you all dead?" However, Valerius pays no mind to his outburst. He simply states at a leisurely pace, "All of you present here." He furrows his brow slightly and announces, "Have all passed the exam." No sooner are the words out than a certain male student stammers a question, "Wait, but the ones who fell down failed the exam, right?" Hearing this, Valerius quickly lowers the floating bodies to the ground and replies casually, "That's right. While you were struggling to cross the bridge, we evaluated everyone's spiritual cultivation capacity. However, the true purpose of this exam was to assess your determination. The atmosphere once again falls into a hush. Suddenly, Valerius's voice rings out, shattering the awkwardness. Even when death was staring you in the face, you didn't run away. You stood your ground and faced it head-on. He emphasizes repeatedly that mental fortitude will become a weapon far more powerful than any talent. These words leave the two-toned hair student astonished, prompting him to mutter unconsciously, a weapon even stronger than talent? Even Hector can't help being shaken, lowering his head. Without waiting for anyone to speak, Valerius quickly adds, the step you took today holds immense value. Hearing this, everyone breaks into delighted and satisfied smiles. Suddenly, Valerius wears an enigmatic smile as he emphasizes, congratulations on passing the exam. His voice grows louder just as a radiant glow shines down, I am proud of all of you. As soon as he finishes, Lilia responds briskly, obviously. Everyone is brimming with excitement. Only Lucius remains standing there with an unbothered demeanor. His sharp gaze slowly sweeps over everything in front of him. Suddenly, Valerius speaks up, making time seem to freeze. Yet his steady voice echoes across the vast space, passing the exam and your evaluation results are two completely different matters. Now I will announce the current rankings, starting with the highest evaluation. The next words Valerius utters cause those present to panic and spin around in unison. Rank 45, Lucius Elminster. Only Lucius himself remains as nonchalant as if it has nothing to do with him. A black-haired male student cannot hide his shock and blurts out, didn't he just stroll casually across the bridge? This question goes unanswered. Instead, Valerius continues. Following that, other students excitedly speculate, it must be Hector, or maybe Lilia. This causes Lilia to hold her head high with pride. Meanwhile, Noah turns around and walks away nonchalantly. Her action, coupled with Valerius's words, quickly draws everyone's attention. Rank 46 is? As soon as he finishes, Noah's footsteps halt. Noah Raven. Hector stands nearby, glaring at her with hostile eyes, while murmurs rise steadily once more. Who the hell is that? In a flash, Noah hurries away amidst the whispering of her peers. Ranked higher than Hector? Why is he running away? That spectacle leaves Lilia utterly furious. She screams at the top of her lungs, huh? Higher than me? That hood-wearing scavenger. More importantly, you're Noah? The moment she finishes, two male students nearby whisper to each other, you didn't have to be so harsh, but come to think of it, is there anyone like him in our class? Hearing this, Lilia grows even angrier and grits out every single word, there is. While everyone is buzzing with discussion, Lucius turns his attention to Noah hiding behind a tree. Suddenly, Valerius speaks up, drawing everyone's attention, that is the entirety of the evaluation results. I trust that all of you accept your rankings. The system notification rings out gradually. Rank 57, Lilia Magnate. Rank 102, Lila J. Meanwhile, Lilia is still muttering resentfully, did she really beat me? While Lila glances sideways at her and thinks happily to herself, no way I'm losing to her. The system sound continues to chime. Rank 47, Hector Gilbert. Rank 96, Chloe John. Chloe asks politely, are your legs all right? However, she gets a harsh retort from the other person, shut your mouth. Over on Lucius and Noah's side, they quickly receive their notifications. Rank 45, Lucius Elminster. Rank 46, Noah Raven. After learning their standings, murmurs break out once more, my rank dropped so much. Your rank is pretty good, right? I actually moved up. Before long, Valerius speaks in a stern tone to remind them, alright, now let's talk about life at the academy starting tomorrow. Pay close attention everyone. His eyebrows furrow as he reports, starting tomorrow, you will be divided into squads of 4. The students before him cannot hide their shock and gasp, teams of 4? Valerius, however, is unbothered. He continues explaining, in this academy, your squad is your most fundamental unit. Whether attending classes or going on missions, you will always operate in groups of 4. His tone grows increasingly grave. Naturally, the stronger the team, the more difficult the assigned missions will be. Suddenly, Valerius emphasizes, but don't forget, rankings are calculated individually and will constantly change. His gaze suddenly flashes with a cold and ruthless glint as he utters the next words, even your own teammates are your competitors for rank. Hearing this, the students before them look thoroughly confused and murmur, teammates, but also rivals, that's brutal. Even so, Valerius quickly regains his composure and signals, squad assignments and your first mission will be announced tomorrow. Suddenly, he states in a strict tone, however, the top 4 students will be grouped together into a single squad. No sooner are the words spoken than Lucius, Noah, and Hector show signs of annoyance. Only Lilia is furious and screams, "Huh? Why do I have to be on a team with these guys?" Meanwhile, Hector remarks nonchalantly, "Just don't get in our way." This scene prompts other students to speculate endlessly. Are they putting all the top students in the same squad? A moment later, Valerius announces leisurely, "This briefing is concluded. Prepare yourselves." Even so, neither Hector nor Lilia are willing to yield to each other, despite having lost the game of rock paper scissors. What just happened right before his eyes inevitably sends Lucius into deep thought. Assigned missions are based on the team's overall strength. With the highest-ranked members in the same squad, they'll probably be given the hardest assignments. To this very moment, Hector and Lilia still haven't stopped scrutinizing Noah. They interrogate him non-stop. "That's right, who on earth is he anyway? Stop right there. Why won't you introduce yourself?" Only Lucius couldn't care less. He quickly accepts reality with the thought, "It's a bit of a hassle, but if I want to get stronger, I just have to deal with it." Suddenly remembering something, Valerius slowly speaks up, "One more thing. Your first mission has already been decided. Those top 4. The smile on the corners of his lips grows increasingly sinister as he utters the next words, "During tomorrow's practical session." This bizarre reaction leaves Lucius's group of 4 extremely tense. Without making them wait long, Valerius issues a demand, "Land even a single blow on us." The next day, Lilia stands there with a heroic posture. She boldly declares, "So this is what the challenge is about?" Not only that, Hector raises his voice in a challenge, "This is seriously underestimating us. Even deadweights like you guys could easily finish a simple challenge like this." He doesn't forget to take the initiative and order them around. "I'll show you how it's done first." Meanwhile, Valerius calmly issues a warning, "Don't misunderstand." Right after that, a powerful wave of magical energy spreads out, making Lilia and Hector freeze in their tracks instantly. Valerius stands amidst that surge of power, his steady voice stating, "No matter how top-ranked you students are, none of you can take me on all by yourselves." His determined gaze and mocking smile slowly reveal themselves as the declaration of war echoes out, "Come at me all at once. All 4 of you." Lilia is provoked. She grows furious and tries to charge forward. Hector is no exception. He frowns slightly as he judges the opponent. Meanwhile, Noah remains completely calm and stands still. Lucius feels amused and wears a satisfied smile at the corners of his mouth. The powerful magical aura from Valerius quickly ripples outwards. Hector can't hide his excitement as he mutters, "All 4 of us at once? Don't make me laugh." Meanwhile, Lilia grinds her teeth and spits out every word, "I'm striking first, so don't get in my way." As for Lucius, he calmly observes the opponent and makes an assumption. He's a royal appraiser, one of the strongest military forces in the empire. The more he thinks about it, the more obscure things get. In reality, probably only a handful of people at the Royal Academy could beat him in a one-on-one fight. Suddenly, Lucius flashes an enigmatic smile. At the same time, Valerius raises his hand to signal, "Bring it on." Instantly, Lucius, Hector, and Lilia all rush forward together. The smile on Lucius's face turns increasingly sinister. He thinks to himself, "Perfect. Let's see what my current strength is really capable of." Facing the fury of the 4 of them, Valerius remains entirely calm and stands his ground. Hector grips the sword in his hand tightly, his gaze full of determination as he stares unblinkingly at his target. However, Valerius flashes a provocative smirk when attacked by him. Within mere seconds, Hector somehow completely misses his target. He trembles with rage and grits his teeth. On the opposite side, Valerius casually grabs the blade of Hector's sword. He offers a contemptuous smirk. Suddenly, Lilia plunges down from above, making him lift his head to watch. Even so, she presses her attack with unwavering resolve. Lilia's determined gaze only makes her punch pack even more force. Just like that, a loud crash echoes through the space, and debris flies everywhere. However, Lilia's punch is effortlessly blocked by Valerius to her utter shock. At this crucial moment, Noah launches a magic attack against Valerius from afar. The magic circle beneath her feet expands wider and wider. A flash of light behind Noah highlights her intense effort all the more. Valerius quickly notices the anomaly. He hastily tosses Lilia aside to observe the scene unfolding before him. With just a single shield, he easily blocks Noah's attack. Even Hector has to dodge Noah's strike. He curses in frustration, "Such a nuisance." Suddenly, Lilia's piercing screech rings out, "Hey, you bastard." Right after that, she aggressively smashes her hand down onto Hector's head to his utter bewilderment. Lilia yells out reproaches non-stop, "Don't just randomly jump out like that. You jerk, do you want to commit suicide or what?" The sight of the two of them bickering makes Valerius sigh helplessly. Before long, his attention is quickly drawn back to Noah. Suddenly, Valerius's expression turns panicked. At this moment, Lucius leaps down from above to strike. His cold gaze makes the attack all the more precise. Even Lilia and Hector down below are completely caught off guard by this move. Within a few short seconds, a massive surge of power rushes straight toward Valerius. Even so, he handles it with absolute composure. A blinding light and billowing smoke spread out, causing the others to instinctively step back. When things finally settle down, everyone turns their eyes toward Valerius and Lucius in unison. Only then does Lucius slowly touch down on the ground. Valerius is still standing amidst the thick smoke. He speaks up with a hint of irritation, so delicate. However, his subsequent tone carries a touch of mockery. "I'd appreciate it if you guys could show a bit more care for the Academy's facilities." Valerius flicks his wrist, and the smoke and dust quickly dissipate, revealing a deep crater in the ground. His smile turns even more sinister. On the opposite side, Lucius bites his lip in dissatisfaction. Suddenly, Lilia dashes over at breakneck speed. She screams, "I'm not done yet." Following right behind her is Hector with a resolute challenge, "Next time, I'm chopping your head off." Even so, Lucius remains standing completely motionless in his spot. He quietly observes the interaction between the three of them. Not long after, both Lilia and Hector are violently batted backward by Valerius. This sight shocks Lucius slightly. Everything is turning into a mess. Noah is dragged into this troublesome vortex as well. Meanwhile, Valerius acts as coolly as if nothing happened. This makes Lucius sink into deep contemplation once again. That man looks like he's fighting all three of them at the same time. But in reality, he isn't. Valerius's movements from earlier flash continuously through his mind. Instead of dealing with them simultaneously, he's taking them down one by one at an almost imperceptible speed. First the second person, then the third. Even the time he faced Hector is carefully noted by Lucius. The more times he has to switch targets, the larger his opening becomes. After a moment of reflection, he reaches a conclusion. The only opening appears in a narrow space right behind him, and its direction changes randomly every single time. Thinking of this, Lucius's eyes reveal a spark of determination. "In that case, I will pinpoint the exact location of the opening by timing his attacks." Suddenly, Lilia in the back smashes her fist hard against the ground. She glares forward furiously and screams, "Don't look down on me." This action prompts Valerius to chuckle involuntarily. Right after, Lilia and Hector rush toward him together with burning rage. This time, they have the backup of Noah. Suddenly, something happens that leaves her utterly astonished. Valerius easily dodges every single one of their attacks. From Hector's sharp blade to Lilia's thunderous punch. This entire scene is seen through clearly by Lucius from above. Meanwhile, Hector and Lilia are still cooperating to land a hit. But in the end, Valerius says coldly, "Useless." At this moment, Noah drops to the ground and clutches her head in agony. Lilia is also knocked to the floor in a panic. Hector glares fiercely at the opponent. Seizing this opportunity, Lucius sneaks an attack on Valerius from above. An enigmatic smile forms at the corner of his lips as he mutters, "Got you." Immediately after, a blinding flash of light erupts right where Valerius is standing. Lucius stands facing Valerius, who is forced to take his attack head-on. Hector and Lilia behind them are also blinded by the glaring light. In a fraction of a second, everything seems swallowed up by that brilliance. Witnessing this, Lucius cannot help but smile with amusement. However, not long after, Valerius manages to emerge safely in front of everyone. This horrifying sight makes Lilia blurt out, "You've gotta be kidding me?" Noah is also stunned and thinks to herself, even an attack that powerful couldn't leave a single scratch on him. Before they can even recover their wits, Valerius's hoarse voice softly echoes, "I'll grant you credit for forcing me to use magic." With that, he shifts his gaze toward Lucius. However, the next words Valerius utters carry a mocking tone, "But it seems I expected too much of you after all." His gaze clearly shows anger as he grits out each word. "If you can't complete this exercise within another hour, this 4-person squad will be disbanded, and you'll be reassigned to teams starting from the lower classes." This news leaves Lilia and Hector utterly outraged. Before they can retort, Valerius calmly reiterates, "I've said it before, as a 4-person squad, think very carefully about what that means. Besides, I'm going to start getting serious from here on out." His complexion doesn't look too good at the moment, and his words carry deep annoyance. "You'd better come up with a different strategy instead of just blindly hunting for openings." Lucius lowers his head, quietly observing the opponent's actions. During the group's discussion, Lilia grows furious, stomping her feet repeatedly on the ground and shouting, "He's so annoying. What's wrong with him anyway? Is that guy even human? Suddenly she falls silent. This action catches Noah's attention. Lilia abruptly steps close to Lucius and barks aggressively, "Hey, you." Without waiting for a reply, she confirms it herself, "Yes, you. You've got a plan, right?" This decisive action puts Lucius in an analytical mindset. Lilia points at him without an ounce of shyness and orders imperiously, "I hate to admit it, but you're the first one who actually forced him to use defensive magic, so I'll listen to you this time. Spit it out." She suddenly clenches her hands into fists. Lilia grinds her teeth in fury and spits out each word, "I refuse to lose in a place like this." Seeing this, Lucius speaks up cautiously. Earlier, his reaction left Lilia and the others dumbfounded. Even so, Lucius calmly shares what he just saw. "When my magic hit, I noticed a slight distortion in the spiritual energy of his defensive barrier." This only makes Lilia feel a bit self-conscious. She mutters under her breath, "Even though I asked first, he actually answered." Meanwhile, Hector crosses his arms coldly. He asks with indifference, "Just because you saw a distortion?" No sooner are the words out than Lucius calmly puts forward his hypothesis. It's very likely that defensive magic concentrates spiritual energy at the point of impact to boost its defense. He vividly imagines the scenario: a single attack is pointless, but 3 people combining forces could succeed. Returning to reality, Lucius's steady voice continues, "In other words, if we attack multiple points at the same time, his spiritual energy will be scattered and his overall power will drop." By now, Lilia willingly responds, "That makes sense." What Lucius just said leaves Hector in deep thought. You mean he saw through that trick in the briefest fraction of a second while attacking? Even Noah beside them is left in awe. Amazing. On Lucius's side, Lilia is clenching her fists, the flames in her hands burning fiercely. She smirks and states resolutely, "That means the more attacks we unleash on him, the better, right?" She smirks and states resolutely, "That means the more attacks we unleash on him, the better, right?" However, Hector scoffs disdainfully, "I'm not doing this just to help you out, Elminster." Suddenly, Noah speaks up with conviction, "If it's the number of strikes you need, leave it to me." Not long after, Lucius's group steps right up in front of Valerius. This makes him quite pleased, though he still tosses out a taunt on the surface, "Let's see how you plan to attack me." Right after, Lilia takes the initiative to charge forward. She orders enthusiastically, "If that's how it is, let's go." Valerius stands in the center of the magic orb, letting the group before him throw everything they have at him. From afar, Noah continuously manipulates her magic to amplify the assault. Even so, Valerius wears a contemptuous smirk and remarks, "Trying to overwhelm me with numbers? But with this level of power." At the same time, Hector's eyes flare with intense hostility. Immediately after, he puts his entire strength into his strike. The exact moment the tip of his sword makes contact with the shield barrier, Hector feels a flicker of fear, but then screams out, "Magnate!" Lilia receives the cue and rushes forward hastily. She punches hard against the hilt of his weapon. Despite having backup, their attack still fails to trouble Valerius at all. Suddenly, the first cracks appear on his shield. Seeing this, Valerius turns his head and praises them. "That was your best attack yet." But right after, he launches a fresh counterattack while not forgetting to mock them. Too bad. Hector's sword gets batted away just like that. He and Lilia are struck by a wave of terror, sharing the exact same thought, "I don't have an ounce of energy left." At this moment, Noah in the distance also starts to panic. Suddenly, Lilia collapses. At this crucial moment, Lucius appears to support her and Hector. His gaze now holds only unwavering resolve as he repeatedly reassures them, "It's not over yet." Just like that, all 3 of them combine forces to deliver a fatal blow. Lilia and Hector's piercing screams ring out in unison. Noah in the distance is slightly startled and instinctively takes a step back. Hector's sword at this very second is receiving an unimaginably terrifying surge of power. Lilia grinds her teeth with determination, and even Hector is caught off guard by her attitude. Valerius can't help but be surprised and stand frozen in place. Not long after, his shield shatters under the sword and combined force of Lucius's group. A violent shockwave ripples outward in all directions. Valerius calmly turns his face away. Meanwhile, Lucius's group wears a full range of expressions, from fury to shock to calmness. A long scratch has now appeared on Valerius's face, yet he wears a satisfied smile. He slowly turns his head toward the 4 of them and speaks up, "You passed." This prompts Lilia to cheer excitedly, "We did it." Noah breathes a sigh of relief, muttering softly, "Thank goodness," but suddenly she drops to her knees. And so do Lilia and Hector. Only Lucius remains standing tall. She can't help feeling smug as she reminds them, "You should be grateful for my strength." Meanwhile, Hector sweats profusely but still talks tough, "Not a bad performance." I suppose I wouldn't mind taking you on as my underling. No sooner are the words out than the other person screams in horror, "What?" Hearing this, Hector acts impatient and replies, "I'm not saying it a second time." Suddenly, the atmosphere plunges into a chilling silence. Lucius stares downward in shock. A thought flashes rapidly across his mind. What was that just now? He instinctively remembers the moment he powered up the blade and reflects, in that exact moment, it merged with my own magic. The figure of Zeno gradually takes shape, touching Lucius's heart, as if it had transformed into a sword. Two gazes with the exact same determination, the fusion of magic and swordsmanship. Thinking of this, Lucius involuntarily wears a sinister smile and deduces, it's possible to perfect it into a physical form. He gazes intently at his hands, ignoring Lilia and Hector passionately arguing. Valerius slowly reaches out to touch the wound on his face and speaks up, "You guys passed." Right after that, he takes a step forward and leaves behind some parting advice. "What I wanted you to learn from this exercise is teamwork. Though still rough around the edges, you seem to be getting used to it." Before disappearing, Valerius makes sure to emphasize, "Don't forget the seamless coordination of that last attack." In the blink of an eye, he vanishes into thin air. Lilia and Hector slowly stand back up. Meanwhile, Lucius remains lost in his own thoughts. That last attack, it felt like swordsmanship and magic were blending into one. Thinking of this, he instinctively clenches his fist with a sinister smile. "If I can master it, it'll become a powerful weapon to deal with that guy." Not long after, inside the Royal Academy library, Lucius is intently searching for information from the book in his hands. Those dense lines of text only hint at basic spiritual energy theory. According to the book, once spiritual energy is transformed, it passes through the internal meridians of the body, and is converted into magic power used by mages or battle aura used by swordsmen. This information makes Lucius instinctively recall the expressions of Lilia and Hector from earlier. Normally, it is believed that a person is born with only one of these two types of meridians. The more he reads, the deeper Lucius sinks into contemplation. That attack was triggered by combining my magic power onto Hector's battle aura swordsmanship. In other words, it's a technique performed by two people cooperating. Can I pull this off all by myself? Suddenly, something in the book catches his attention. The text reads, "Furthermore, it is said that in extremely rare cases, there are individuals who possess both magic meridians and battle auras, and the founder used both to fuse their swordsmanship." Reading this, Lucius thinks to himself with immense excitement, "This is it." As time passes, he resolutely swings down his very first strike with the thought. After that, when I tried it out myself, Lucius's body radiates a powerful surge of magic power. His gaze turns slightly sorrowful as he tells himself, though the result was a failure. But Lucius stares intently at the sword in his hand. There is a vague sensation very similar to the battle aura meridians from my past life. Thinking of this, his determination grows even stronger as he emphasizes, "There's a chance the battle aura meridians I trained to their limit in my past life are still dormant inside me. If I can awaken them and master the magic power of this life." Lucius instinctively wears an enigmatic smile as he states, "I might just achieve the fusion strength of the founder." At the same time, deep within the vast forest where the students are gathering and Kathy is hovering in midair, the loudspeaker in her hand begins to crackle to life. Kathy flashes a radiant smile and speaks up, "Nice to meet you all. I am your supervising instructor, Ms. Kathy. Can everyone hear me clearly?" No sooner are the words out than the students below begin to chatter noisily, so loud. "She's got way too much energy." Even so, Kathy enthusiastically introduces, "Today is a special practical session for teams ranked from 30 to 100 out of a total of 500 students across the entire school. A friendly match between the upper-level classes." Hearing this, the students murmur among themselves once more, "Oh, really? Hey look, it's those rookies." The gazes of the upperclassmen radiate a burning murderous intent. They grit their teeth and mutter, "Everyone, do your best to raise your rankings." The sight before him leaves Lucius deep in thought. Those guys are ranked higher than us. The mocking laughter of the upperclassmen echoes continuously. Suddenly, Lilia flies into a rage and screams, "Stop glaring at me." Right after that, the surrounding atmosphere plunges into a suffocating silence. Lilia's impulsive behavior irritates Hector. Suddenly, she is shoved to the ground by a tall man. Lilia refuses to lose and snaps back angrily, "Hey, you big guy." Seeing this, the man with tied-up hair hastily explains, "I'm sorry. Because of my bulky build, it was hard to see." The moment she looks at the opponent, Lilia can't help being shocked and thinks to herself, "He's massive." The two people standing in front of her apologize repeatedly, "Please bear with him." Suddenly, Kathy up above wears a gleeful smile and announces, "A super easy match." A spirit orb is placed inside the hollow of the giant tree in the center of the mangrove forest. Just mentioning that tree hollow makes it radiate a magical glow. She continues, the team that touches it first wins. Hearing this, Lucius can't help feeling curious and instinctively thinks about the spirit orb. Not leaving him in suspense for long, Kathy explains, a spirit orb is a high-purity spiritual energy condensation crystal. It's a special academy item that significantly boosts the body's base spiritual power when absorbed. Do you guys super want to get your hands on it? As soon as she finishes, the red-haired male student chimes in excitedly, boost base spiritual power? Right after that, the blonde male student asks happily, does that mean skipping years of training in the blink of an eye? Even Lucius feels amused and sports a sinister smile. A thought flashes across his mind, this is it. If I can channel a large amount of pure spiritual energy all at once, I can awaken the dormant battle aura meridians from my past life. Kathy's steady voice rings out, cutting off Lucius's train of thought, clashing with other teams is completely allowed. The time limit is until sunset. The moment she finishes, the rookies enthusiastically dash forward in a hurry. Meanwhile, the experienced students wear enigmatic smiles. Lucius's group is no exception. They gaze intently ahead. A firework shoots up into the sky right after, while Kathy loudly declares, all right, let's begin. Lucius hurriedly charges deep into the forest, followed closely by his remaining teammates right beside him. Other groups gradually catch up to his pace. They don't hesitate to flash contemptuous smiles. The arrogant blonde guy draws his weapon and speaks up brazenly, sorry about this, you little rookies. Hearing this, Hector feels somewhat annoyed and mutters, don't tell me they're higher ranked than us. Before he can even finish his sentence, the blonde guy and his teammates charge forward, barking orders, just stay down. Right after that, a strike is slammed straight down into the ground. Lucius moves swiftly, sending the opponent flying backward in a panic. That terrifying spectacle causes even Hector to blurt out, huh? What? Suddenly Lucius turns around and gives a stern warning, don't be fooled by rankings. You'll understand if you remember that practical session. We are very strong. Lucius's nonchalant reaction leaves his teammates momentarily stunned. Suddenly, a blonde-haired girl steps forward, acting bossy as she speaks, who the hell did you just call strong? Right after, another blonde male student chimes in with a disdainful tone, too bad, but the real battle starts now. No sooner are the words out than Hector angrily challenges them, the real battle? Hearing this, the man with braided rose-style hair charges forward aggressively and confirms, yeah, that's right. The real rookie hunt. The blonde male student wears the smile of a victor and delivers his parting words, we'll gladly take your rankings through this rookie hunt. From the very first strike, all attacks rain down toward Hector like a fierce storm. Witnessing this horrifying scene, he can only grit his teeth and prepare to counterattack. The exact moment the magic powers of both sides collide, a thunderous explosion erupts. This leaves the blonde male student utterly terrified and stumbling backward. Meanwhile, Hector can't believe what he just produced. He stands there dazed for a long while, but right after, the men with rose-style braids rush toward Lilia, screaming, don't get full of yourself. Utter viciousness is plastered across each of their faces. Facing this rampage, Lilia cannot avoid a wave of panic. However, right after, fury engulfs her body. Lilia clenches her fists tightly and charges straight at the opponent. Her very first punch is blocked by a giant saber, followed immediately by the interception of a second saber. Even so, Lilia remains utterly resolute as she grits out, don't you dare. Seeing her determination, the two men with rose-style braids are completely stunned. Both sabers are fiercely scorched by the flames erupting from Lilia. The moment they shatter into pieces, she shouts out a warning, look down on me will you. After everything falls silent, Lilia's expression reveals deep shock. At the same time, over on Noah's side, she is surrounded by the icy magic of her opponents. She bites her lip in fear, but right after, a thought flashes through Noah's mind, we are strong. Before she even makes a move, Hector and Lilia rush over to rescue her instantly. Noah hastily summons a magic circle. She tells herself, it's okay. He said we. In the blink of an eye, the floating ice shards in mid-air are completely controlled. Noah thinks to herself, I guess that includes me too. Even so, she still feels immense pressure and grits her teeth. Before long, the ice shards in the sky are thoroughly shattered. Lilia forcefully hurls the scarred rosebraid guy forward while screaming at the top of her lungs, go to hell. Not only that, she even praises Noah, you actually know how to fight. Even Hector mutters, we beat them. Suddenly, Lucius standing nearby pipes up, is it over? This remark instantly plunges his remaining teammates into a state of tension. But the very next second, Lucius gives the signal, let's go. Everything they just did is observed by Kathy through the magic orb. She can't help marveling, the top 5 teams were eliminated just minutes after starting. And what's more, the ones who beat them are a rookie team. The images of Lilia, Hector, and Noah leave Kathy intrigued, muttering nonstop, truly impressive, but the power of those other 3 as well. Suddenly she gently taps the orb. Lucius's face gradually materializes. Kathy thinks to herself, this kid. Kathy calmly pieces the events together. She instinctively makes a deduction. With just a few words, he rallied the morale of all 3 of them, and possesses enough strength to take down upperclassmen all by himself. Thinking of this, she instinctively wears an enigmatic smile and murmurs, just who on earth are you? Meanwhile, the person in question is still running diligently through the forest, Lucius Elminster. At the same time, Lucius's group is being tailed by someone from afar. A pair of binoculars flashes with an eerie light. These people are none other than the tied-up hair guys group. Amidst the vast forest, Lucius's group leads the pack, followed closely by countless other groups. Lilia hurriedly rushes forward. She cheers loudly, we've arrived, right up ahead. Meanwhile, Hector reminds them constantly, stay alert. There's another team right behind us. Before long, Lucius's group stands directly beneath the giant ancient tree. The magical glow shines downward without stopping. Seeing this, Lucius and his teammates pick up their pace and move even faster. Suddenly he notices something unusual. Lucius stops abruptly, whispering under his breath amidst the shock of his teammates, stop. No sooner are the words out than Lilia is left dumbfounded. She interrogates him non-stop. What are you talking about? They're going to get there before us. Yet the other person replies calmly, listen to me first. Right after that, Lilia's expression turns utterly horrified as she witnesses the scene before her. The fragment of pure spiritual energy shatters completely in a split second. This leaves Hector and the others panic-stricken. Suddenly, Noah leaps out from somewhere. A giant set of jaws emerges right beneath the feet of the group and the ancient tree. It is none other than a water monster with blazing red eyes. The scenery at this moment leaves those present feeling terrified and bewildered. Only Lucius and his teammates stand there with an expression ready for battle. Through the orb, Kathy can witness the students howling in hopeless despair. However, the side-parted hairman steps in to interrupt. Instructor Kathy, he reminds her non-stop, what the hell is that? We need to cancel the exam and call for reinforcements immediately. However, she just stretches lazily at a leisurely pace. A moment later, she replies cheerfully, no way. Just keep the exam going as it is. This makes the side-parted hairman furious as he screams, have you completely lost your mind? Kathy slowly pivots her heel. She states, little unexpected situations like this always happen anyway. Before he can even finish, the side-parted hairman in the back snaps irritably, don't be so ridiculous. Even so, Kathy calmly speaks up, besides, anyone who dies here. Though she doesn't finish her sentence, those present begin to feel a chill run down their spines. Kathy gazes toward the horizon, her steady voice ringing out, wouldn't survive on a real battlefield anyway. Understanding the underlying intent behind her words, the side-parted hairman still can't help feeling startled as he mutters, even so. Suddenly Kathy pivots around, flashing a gentle smile as she murmurs, just kidding. The smile on the corners of her mouth grows increasingly enigmatic. If things really get out of hand, you guys can just leave everything to this queen bee. No sooner are the words out than the atmosphere plunges into a terrifying silence. A thought flashes rapidly across Kathy's mind. Still, there shouldn't be any magical beasts in this area. She slowly opens her eyes, revealing a deep look of contemplation. Something isn't quite right. Meanwhile, deep within the forest, an intense chaotic battle is unfolding. The students do not hesitate to charge forward and attack the magical beast. Critical strikes rain down continuously and relentlessly. A male student's sword is knocked backward, making him angrily snap. Are its scales being reinforced by the spirit orb spheres? Noah and the other mages are working hard to use magic to stop the magical beast. A series of spells are unleashed toward the opponent. Just like that, a powerful beam of light quickly blankets the entire area. Not long after, as the dust gradually clears, Noah calmly observes ahead. The giant magical beast lies motionless on the ground. Seeing this, a male student shrieks in terror. There isn't even a single scratch. The very next second, it lashes its tail and dives back into the lake amidst murmurs from the crowd. What should we do? What do you mean? What are we supposed to do? Suddenly the magical beast surges onto the shore at high speed. Its target is right where the students are standing. Its frenzied state causes everyone to scatter in panic. Screams of terror ring out endlessly, this is bad. Run! It's going to swallow us whole. Suddenly Lucius darts forward to everyone's astonishment. Doubtful voices begin to echo continuously. What on earth does he think he's doing? Has he completely lost his mind? In the blink of an eye, Lucius stands face to face with the giant beast. Down below, Lilia worries frantically as she screams, "What a total idiot, Elminster." The moment the beast attacks Lucius, the onlookers seem petrified with fear. Meanwhile, he wears a satisfied smile and slowly reaches his hand forward. Even so, Lucius is swallowed up by the magical beast. Lilia and Hector cannot believe what they have just witnessed. They are utterly terrified at this point. Shortly after, the giant beast dives back down to the bottom of the lake. Lucius's reckless action quickly draws scoldings from the other male students. Is that stupid good-for-nothing tired of living? This is precisely why I hate useless freshman newbies with zero practical combat experience. But suddenly the magical beast surges back into the air at an astonishing speed. This sight makes several onlookers cry out in fright. Hey look! Unlike last time, this time the beast shoots straight up into the sky. It appears to have no intention of attacking anyone. This prompts Noah to blurt out, if something that massive crashes back into the water from that height, the resulting tsunami will swallow this entire area whole. Suddenly a dazzling light appears right on top of the beast's head. Right after, a shockwave ripples outward, freezing the other students in their tracks. Even Hector and Lilia are left dumbfounded. Everyone seems to be gazing in the exact same direction, awaiting the conclusion. Lucius stands majestically amidst a giant magic circle. This sight leaves a male student stuttering. Did he just blow it up from the inside all by himself? Meanwhile, Lucius gazes at the blue orb in his hand with an enigmatic smile. His triumphant voice rings out softly, "Got it." Lucius slowly touches down on the ground amidst the skeptical gazes of the onlookers. The light emitting from him makes Lilia and Hector's eyes go wide with shock. Meanwhile, Lucius sports a sinister smile as he lifts the gem in his hand. Suddenly Kathy appears, speaking up in a soft tone, "All right, the practical exercise is officially over." As soon as she finishes, the onlookers turn to look at her in unison. Kathy casually announces, "Everyone return to the academy." Her sharp gaze sweeps over Lucius, accompanied by a harmonious smile. Lucius seems to have detected the opponent's glance. The blue-haired male student can't help getting angry as he mutters, "I can't believe we got outperformed by a first-year group." Not long after, Lucius and his teammates pick up their pace and step out of the forest. Lilia puts her hands on her hips and cheers excitedly, "Just as I thought, it was a breeze." Even Hector chimes in leisurely, "I'd rather face someone stronger." Witnessing this, Noah bursts into a chuckle. Suddenly Lucius's steady voice rings out, catching Lilia's attention. His footsteps coming to a halt leave her guessing. Lilia stares intently at the person in front of her, posing a question to herself, "Just who on earth are you?" Meanwhile, Lucius keeps his eyes fixed on the pure spiritual energy orb in his hand. A thought flashes rapidly across his mind, so this is the spiritual energy orb. The spiritual orb glows brighter and brighter. There's no mistaking it, the spiritual energy inside is extremely dense. Lucius's reflection appears on the surface of the orb. He thinks to himself, "This thing might just be enough to awaken my battle aura meridians." Suddenly a sound rings out, grabbing the attention of Lilia and the others. The newcomer is none other than the tied-up hair guy. He speaks up slowly, "These kids really are strong." Right after, the heavy-set man chimes in, "We were so scared we couldn't even budge." As soon as she spots them, Lilia quickly recognizes them. "It's that guy who bumped into us this morning." The tied-up hair guy wears a friendly smile, offering praises non-stop. "You guys really impressed me. You performed so well. I can hardly believe you're only first-year students." This outgoing gesture catches Lucius's eye. The tied-up hair guy doesn't seem to mind him. He bursts out laughing and teases, "Lucius being strong goes without saying, but the other three also possess incredible spiritual energy. Everyone looks so cool. You guys have made me a fan." Clap, clap. The heavy-set man suddenly steps forward and offers, "We might be weak, but we've been at the academy for a long time, so we can definitely help you guys out." Right after, the tied-up hair guy also helps pitch in, "I'm an upperclassman, but I hope we can be friends." Seeing the other person's outstretched hand in midair, Lilia falls into deep contemplation. But right after, she takes off her glove and murmurs softly, "Fine." In a split second, both sides appear ready to shake hands. The tied-up hair guy wears a warm smile. Suddenly he violently yanks Lilia backward. This sudden action fills her with panic. Just like that, a loud crash echoes throughout the quiet space. Noah and Hector are scared out of their wits by the scene. Lilia has fallen unconscious at this point. Fortunately, Lucius manages to catch her in time. He sternly questions the opponent, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" His sharp gaze sweeps across the opponent as he grits out each word, "The practical exercise is already over." These words make the crowd in front of them chuckle. The tied-up hair guy squints to appraise Lucius. He speaks casually, "You really are amazing." The very next second, he extends his hand once more and offers, "The finest prey we could ever hope for." This action makes Hector instinctively step backward in fear. The raspy voice of the tied-up hair guy rings out, "Have you kids ever heard of the swamp dwellers?" No sooner are the words out than the atmosphere plunges into a chilling silence. Noah cannot hide her fear as she mutters softly, "Swamp dwellers." Before she can finish, a swamp dweller cuts in, "This academy has only one rule to stay enrolled. Every year, the 125 lowest-ranking students are expelled." Right after, the fat guy adds, "In other words, as long as you aren't among those bottom 125 students, you can continue studying at this academy indefinitely." The swamp dweller's gaze suddenly reveals a pitiful look. He explains, "We could never climb high enough to receive the blessing. Cruel, isn't it? But we've never been ranked in the bottom 125 to get expelled either." He has experienced the feeling of being left behind by his peers. Students like them just grow older, chained to this academy year after year. The more he speaks, the more sinister the opponent's voice becomes, called the swamp dwellers. No sooner are the words out than Lucius coldly asks straight to the point, "What do you swamp dwellers want?" The tied-up hair guy throws his head back and laughs loudly. He states, "We've been here way too long. We never made it past average rankings. And before we knew it, we grew old." His gaze grows increasingly hazy as he emphasizes, "We even lost the right to bear our family names." Hector cannot hide his contempt after hearing everything. He mocks loudly, "Turns out you guys are nothing more than over-the-hill losers clinging to this place because you can't let go." No sooner are the words out than the tied-up hair guy buries his face in his hands in despair and yells, "That's right, we lost everything. There aren't many ways for washed-up losers like us to rise back up." Because of that, his panicked gaze shifts downward, his voice growing softer than before, "Until we receive the blessing and take back everything we lost." Suddenly the tied-up hair guy's voice turns enigmatic, "We will stop at nothing." No sooner are the words out than Hector blurts out, "What is that?" Far off in the distance, countless skulls are piled into heaps. Noah's eyes clearly reveal terror at this moment. She subconsciously conjures a giant magic circle on the ground. Noah's powerful spiritual energy continuously blankets the surrounding area. The fat guy's lips twitch, after which he and the tied-up hair guy raise their hands high into the sky. This sight makes Hector grit his teeth in fury. The crowd in front of them is constantly draining Noah's spiritual energy. The amount of power they possess grows larger by the moment. The tied-up hair guy's throat moves slightly, and the nearby skulls begin to float up into the air. The eerie voice of the tied-up hair guy echoes, "It's coming, it's coming, it's coming here." The fat guy next to him also cheers happily. This feeling is so addictive. He points toward the opposite side and speaks with a greedy tone, "Now let me keep draining you until you're dead." The moment her magic power is nearly depleted, Noah regains her senses and screams, "Fall back now." Even so, the fat guy is still able to drain her magic power without interruption. Suddenly Hector lunges forward amidst Noah's confusion. His attention lands on the pile of skulls behind the fat guy. Hector knits his brows tightly as he guesses about the jar. The very next second, he dashes rapidly toward the hourglass. Hector acts decisively without any hesitation. In the blink of an eye, he successfully destroys the swamp dweller's hourglass. However, something appears that leaves Hector horrified as he blurts out, "What?" Unbeknownst to him, the fat guy has appeared right behind his back. He grips Hector's neck tightly and whispers, "What a pity." The moment Hector's magic power is sucked away, the fat guy whispers, "Only those who activate the jar can touch it." At this crucial moment, Lucius launches a swift attack. His gaze clearly reveals extreme fury. The images of the fat guy from earlier plunge Lucius into deep thought. That jar absorbs magic attacks. Along with that, the image of the fat guy whispering to Hector also preoccupies him, and will also drain the energy of anyone who touches it. Thinking of this, Lucius instinctively murmurs, "If that's the case." The very next second, he decisively delivers a fatal kick toward the fat guy. The latter fails to react in time and takes the full brunt of that violent kick. In a flash, the fat guy is sent flying backward, while Hector collapses heavily onto the ground. A loud crash echoes alongside a cloud of dust and debris. Lucius can't help feeling amused as he states, "It seems physical attacks still work." Not long after, as the dust gradually clears, the figures of the fat guy and the tied-up hair guy come into view. At this moment, Lucius walks over to Hector's sword. This sight leaves the latter panic-stricken and sweating profusely. Hector speaks up anxiously upon seeing Lucius slowly pick up the sword. "What are you planning to do? You're a mage, aren't you?" The moment Lucius grips the sword, he answers decisively, "No." He closes his eyes tightly to feel the weapon in his hand. Lucius's steady voice rings out softly. I was originally trained. His actions terrify the opponents. Suddenly, Lucius emphasizes every single word. As a swordsman, the smile on the corners of his mouth turns extremely eerie. Lucius stands there looking ready for battle. He flashes an enigmatic smile, casting a sharp gaze toward the opponent. The tied-up hair guy continues to mock him. A sword? The fat guy next to him also sneers relentlessly. Turns out the little mage wants to play swordsman? Suddenly, a beam of light flashes through the dense forest. Before the fat guy can finish speaking, Lucius rushes right to his feet. I'm going to snap that amateur's sword in half. Following a flurry of attacks from you, the two figures before your eyes panicked and let out loud shouts. Even so, the man with his hair tied back managed to narrowly dodge the initial strikes. He aggressively raised his arm to block the opponent's incoming attack. Despite that, Lucius's gaze did not reveal even a hint of wavering. Not stopping there, he skillfully maneuvered and snaked his blade forward. This action brought the sharp edge even closer to the face of the tied hair man. Thus, he was inevitably forced back. But in a flash, Lucius decisively finished off his opponent. The gruesome sight of the man's severed head tumbling down happened to catch Lilia's eye. She was so terrified that her eyes went wide, stammering out in disbelief, "No way." Meanwhile, Lucius maintained a completely calm expression as he looked ahead. He casually turned his back and walked away. Even Hector, upon witnessing the scene, was left shaking as he thought to himself, "No way. Did he pull off a technique like that without using any mana or aura?" The more he thought about it, the more terror filled his eyes. How on earth could you possibly pull off a skill like that? Suddenly, Lucius locked onto the bald-headed man and charged straight at him. This unexpected move left his opponent with no time to escape, though the man still sneered arrogantly, "I thought you were just some trashy spellcaster." At the exact same time, the other member of the group hurriedly piped up, "Please calm down. He didn't use any aura. He's still just a weak 12-year-old kid." The moment the opponent finished speaking, a spark of fire flashed in Lucius's eyes. His attack speed was even faster than before. The bald-headed man wore a sinister grin, smugly muttering, "Right, I need to stay calm." Immediately afterward, he reached out and touched the jar strapped to his back. This action instantly caught Lucius's sharp attention. In the blink of an eye, the bald man's body began to transform, prompting him to loudly provoke, tremble in fear. Within a few short moments, the bald man swelled up to several times his original size, repeatedly demanding, "How do you like me now?" Even so, Lucius rushed forward to attack without the slightest hesitation. Yet the opponent suffered virtually no damage. Instead, he burst into a loud, mocking laugh. No sword swung by a kid without spiritual power could ever pierce through this body. This is the true might of all the spiritual energy we've plundered. Suddenly, the bald man coiled his body and lunged forward at blinding speed, not forgetting to taunt, "Eat this, kid." Standing his ground, Lucius refused to back down, gripping his sword as he dashed toward his rival, and the two began trading blows fiercely. The bald man lashed out with a punch straight toward Lucius's face, but the boy easily sidestepped it. Even so, Lucius sensed something was off and thought to himself, "This isn't good." Right after that, he dropped into a crouch on the ground. In a fraction of a second, Lucius launched a counterattack, only for the bald man to dodge it. The opponent's movement plunged him back into deep thought, not enough impact. Despite that, the two continued their intense and dramatic clash. Suddenly, a thought crossed Lucius's mind regarding his past life physique. Even without aura, a body like this is barely tougher than a sheet of paper. But in this body, if there's no aura. Suddenly, his sword was gripped tightly by the bald man. The giant used all his might to send Lucius flying backward. Unable to contain his rage, the bald man roared at the top of his lungs, "I've had enough. You're really starting to piss me off." Caught off guard, Lucius was sent hurtling away under Lilia's shocked gaze. Both she and Noah looked on in absolute panic at the unfolding scene. Fortunately, Lucius managed to turn the tables on his own. He calmly knelt on the ground. Soon enough, the bald man caught up to him, showering him with praises. "I have to admit, that swordplay actually caught me off guard." But the very next words out of his mouth were pure mockery. "A kid is still just a kid. Without aura, your swordsmanship is no more dangerous than a newborn baby flailing its arms around." All of a sudden, a pure orb of spiritual energy rolled right to Lucius's feet. He instinctively placed a hand over his left chest, thinking, "This feeling." The more he pondered, the more certain Lucius became of his hypothesis. "I knew it. It seems the aura pathways from my past life are responding." Without missing a beat, he reached out toward the pure spiritual energy and muttered, "If I use this." Suddenly, the bald man across from him roared aggressively, "Time to finish you off." Meanwhile, Lucius remained lost in his own thoughts. "If I remember correctly, this is how you use it." he slowly closed his eyes shut, his hand tightly grasping the orb of pure spiritual energy. Before long, a powerful wave of magical energy enveloped Lucius's entire body, shifting constantly, before finally seeping deep within him. Everything unfolded without causing the host any pain at all. Deep inside his body, countless wisps of magical energy converged into a single point. Lucius kept his eyes calmly closed, savoring this rare sensation. Suddenly, his heart gave a violent thud. Lucius's eyes flew open in sheer shock. A eerie smile crept onto his face as he endlessly muttered to himself, "It's finally awakened." Lucius's body is growing stronger by the second. The aura pathways in this vessel. The sight before him quickly drained the color from the bald man's face. Even though Lucius's footing was still unsteady, he reminded himself, "I had to forcefully pry open my pathways using the spiritual orb." Gripping his sword tightly, he tried to steady his nerves. "My aura will probably only hold out for a single strike." Across from him, the bald man began to panic. Breaking into a cold sweat, he muttered under his breath. The suffocating killing intent radiating from Lucius's body left him gasping for air. What is this immense pressure? Suddenly, his opponent's voice rang out, "I'll end this in one blow." Lucius swiftly dropped into a combat stance as rich currents of magical energy billowed around his entire body. By this point, the bald man had been frightened out of his wits. Amidst it all, Lucius wore a triumphant smirk as he murmured, "That's my specialty." The spectacle unfolding below also left the black-haired male student terrified. The bald man screamed at the top of his lungs, desperately warning, "Don't let that attack hit you." The sword in Lucius's hand suddenly flared with a brilliant light. In an instant, the bald man turned on his heel and fled in a panic-stricken scramble. Even so, Lucius resolutely unleashed his strike. Shortly after, his opponent collapsed into the swirling dust and smoke. Lucius's body promptly plunged into a state of total exhaustion. He slumped down onto the ground, panting heavily as a thought rapidly flashed through his mind. "Just as I thought, a single strike is my limit. The power I absorbed from the spiritual orb is fading away." Beads of sweat trickled down Lucius's weary face. He kept repeating in his heart, "But the aura pathways themselves have been opened." His grip on the sword tightened further. "It's still incomplete, and it looks like I can't channel my aura without the spiritual orb." The smile on Lucius's lips revealed a genuine sense of elation. Pulling himself together quickly, he muttered, "Still, I've found the path ahead now." Suddenly, Noah came running from a distance, frantically calling out his name. Lilia arrived right behind her, speaking up with a hint of wariness. Unable to hide her anxiety, she blurted out, "What on earth was that just now?" As soon as she finished speaking, an oppressive silence fell over the surroundings. Noah softly whispered, "Are you okay?" Hearing this, Lucius reassured her, "I'm fine." Suddenly, Hector's voice cut through from afar, "Elminster." Everyone present instantly fell silent. Only then did he slowly stand up, his voice stern and accusatory. "The way you handled that sword, that's the technique of someone who's spent decades mastering the blade." The more he spoke, the harsher Hector's tone became. "Who taught you that?" Gusts of wind swept past, heightening the tense atmosphere between the two. The silence stretched on between them for an untold amount of time. At last, Lucius turned his gaze toward Hector, though he made no immediate move to explain. Lilia stretched out her arms and relaxed with a refreshed sigh. "Well, at least our rankings jumped up quite a bit." Noah replied flatly, "Yeah." She cheerfully chimed in, "We've gathered everyone's spiritual energy now." Lilia flashed a confident smile, "From here on out, I'm not going to lose to you anymore, Noah." Right now, she sat at rank 26, Lilia Magnate. She merely offered a faint smile, unfazed. "I'll let you take the lead for now." Rank 29, Noah Raven. And standing at rank 25 was Hector Gilbert, who remained completely silent. He gritted his teeth, looking utterly displeased. Hector's glare was locked fiercely onto Lucius. He was lost in his own calculated thoughts. Rank 19, Lucius Elminster. His aura pathways were unlocked during this training session, but with his current level of spiritual energy, he shouldn't be able to activate those pathways on his own. Next, I need to drastically increase my own stock of spiritual energy. The group made their way over to the central courtyard. Cadets were craning their necks to look up at the notice board. The 27th Imperial Betting Tournament. Lilia furrowed her brows tightly at the sight. "What in the world is this?" Noah looked equally curious. "The Imperial Betting Tournament?" Suddenly, a hand reached out to block Lucius's path. Kathy beamed with friendly enthusiasm, greeting him, "Interested?" "Hey kid, how's it going?" Her eyes gleamed with a barely concealed mischievous glint. "Don't make such a scary face. You kids did great during yesterday's training session, didn't you?" "Thanks to you lot. I got to ditch those old geezer supervisors so easily. On high alert, Lucius took a step back. Is that really all? Kathy zipped over to hover right in front of the notice board. This caught your eye, didn't it? She whipped out a megaphone to broadcast the news. This tournament is hosted directly by the Empire. Skilled fighters from all across the Empire will gather here, not just students from the Academy. It's a massive event. A few level-headed and cautious students spoke up. If I recall correctly, isn't this just a pastime where powerful imperial nobles wager money on fighters? They still value their lives, you know. Aren't there rumors that people die every single time? Unbothered, Kathy readily confirmed, almost all those rumors are true. Even so, she leaned in close to his face with a grin. Kathy emphasized the core detail. The arena used for this tournament has a special structure. The spiritual energy emitted by the combatants gathers right there on the stage, and anyone standing in that arena will naturally absorb the accumulated spiritual energy. Therefore, the longer a match drags on, the denser the concentration of spiritual energy on the stage becomes. She crowed excitedly, the longer you stay in that ring, the higher your base spiritual energy will rise. Lucius's interest was instantly piqued. Kathy continued boasting about the perks. Since this is an off-campus event and doesn't affect school rankings, it's an amazing tournament for anyone looking to test their true strength. But most of the students remained indifferent. If it doesn't affect our rankings, there's no point in joining. Besides, if my parents find out I'm gambling, heaven knows what they'll say. Let's go. She thought to herself with a twinge of disappointment, is this tournament really that unpopular? He remained deep in thought, an arena where spiritual energy gathers. Lilia didn't seem to care either. Since it doesn't affect our rankings, there's no need to take part. Plus, we might actually get hurt. A sharp spark of excitement flickered in Lucius's eyes. If I win every single match, that means I can harvest a staggering amount of spiritual energy. Amidst the crowd walking away, he called out, "Hey, you." Hearing that, Kathy's eyes lit up instantly. Lucius asked flatly, "Where do I turn in the application form?" She blinked in absolute astonishment. "You're actually going to enter?" "It has nothing to do with the rankings, you know." She zipped right up to him and cheered, "If it's for Lucy-chan, I'll gladly submit the paperwork for you." Kathy added as an afterthought, "Oh, and by the way," lowering her voice to share that rank 8, rank 10, and rank 15, all students ranked above Lucy-chan, were scheduled to compete as well. Kathy cheerfully darted away from the grand courtyard. "Do your best." Lucius offered a subtle, calculated smile. Time flew by until opening day finally arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Imperial Betting Tournament. The rules here are remarkably simple. Place any amount of money you wish on your favorite fighter. If your fighter claims victory, you'll receive a payout based on the odds. The MC shouted enthusiastically to hype up the crowd. The further a fighter advances into the bracket, the lower their odds will drop. In other words, during the early rounds when nobody's paying attention, placing a bet is your absolute best chance to back an underdog with a high payout. Anyone who succeeds in picking out these rising stars will rule this tournament. The audience chattered excitedly among themselves. I heard a 12-year-old freshman is fighting as an academy representative. It's just a vulgar noble pastime anyway, hardly worth betting on. Lucius stood backstage, observing the situation. He lost himself in his own thoughts, just as expected from a tournament hosted by the Empire. Everyone here possesses a terrifying amount of spiritual energy. Lucius could clearly perceive the unimaginable power radiating from each and every participant. He narrowed his eyes to take a closer look. Looks like the top 3 ranked above 15 haven't arrived yet. The MC waved his arms delightedly as the spinning matchup cards whirred. Now, let's announce the pairings for the very first match. Lucius's face appeared on screen immediately afterward. The announcer loudly remarked, "Oh, the physical size difference between these two is massive. Our opening match features the representative of the Royal Academy, freshman Lucius Elminster." The MC introduced the two rivals in a booming voice, facing off against Northern Vanguard contender, Galdus. Lilia instantly recognized it. Isn't the Northern Vanguard one of the Empire's highest-tier guard units? Noah immediately praised her. "You're really well-informed, magnate." She replied awkwardly, "Ah, yeah." The nobles smirked triumphantly. "This match is way too easy. I can make some cash off a guaranteed win right now." You could clearly see a massive amount of bets flooding in against Lucius's opponent. The match is about to start right now. The Northern Vanguard soldiers howled with amusement. "Hey, you can't even call this gambling anymore. Don't be so harsh on the kid. He's still so young. How pitiful." The MC announced in a high voice, "From now on, the fighter's spiritual energy will be stored in both pillars. When they fill up, that will be the signal for the match to begin. He shouted out excitedly, "Are both sides ready?" Lucius remained as calm as can be, not even bothering to reply. The MC swung the hammer in his hand high, his voice echoing across the entire arena, "Ready." The MC struck the bell hard, letting the signal ring out. Geldas bolted like lightning straight behind him. "Stupid brat." Lilia leaped to her feet in agitation. "So fast." He let out a majestic roar. "What on earth is this?" Lucius tipped his head back slightly and muttered, "An axe." He easily caught the razor-sharp attack. Geldas's eyes widened in sheer astonishment. Lucius effortlessly blasted his opponent back into the distant wall. The man instantly lost consciousness completely. He didn't even break a single sweat. Lucius only offered a faint, casual smile. Geldas crashed face-first onto the floor, completely unable to fight anymore. The guests present all lost the color in their faces. The MC also furrowed his brows tightly in shock. "I can't believe it." He had to steady himself before declaring, "The match is over. The winner is Lucius Elminster." The stands instantly exploded. "What the hell? How did that guy lose to a kid like that? I placed 100 million Jenny on him." The MC pointed straight at Lucius's dreary expression, an unbelievable, unexpected twist right from the very first match. One blow, just a single blow. A super rookie has appeared. The spectators watching breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank God, I was worrying over nothing." "Stop hitting the railing, magnate." Most of them were deeply curious. Who on earth is he anyway? He had absorbed a considerable amount of spiritual energy. Even so, Lucius was far from satisfied, still not enough to activate the aura pathways. The next match ended just as abruptly. Lucius Elminster vs Baron Girun. The MC seemed already used to the match's pace. The second round is another one-hit knockout. What kind of freak is this kid? The nobles panicked and scrambled to change targets. Damn it, it's all ruined. Hey, transfer our bets to that kid. Bet everything we've got. Despite their recognition, he continuously advanced into the deeper rounds. He clutched his head and shouted with excitement, an astonishing 3-win streak. The 12-year-old underdog Lucius Elminster is unstoppable. Lucius kept a deadpan expression as he absorbed the spiritual energy. Kathy was cheerfully celebrating amidst her pile of winnings. "Way to go, Lucy." She was quickly hushed. "Be quiet." Hector was so furious he was biting his lip until it bled. He focused on sensing the surging power within his body. Still not. This still isn't enough. Suddenly, heavy thudding sounds echoed through the stands. Lucius instinctively stiffened as if gripped by fear. A dark shadow slowly approached. The very first footstep touching the stands carried an unimaginable pressure. The two spiritual pillars instantly filled up. The MC involuntarily broke out in a cold sweat. Hey, nobody told me about this. I can't believe a super VIP actually showed up here." He stood tall and imposing on the elevated platform. Anyone standing nearby instinctively stepped back a few paces. Lucius stood rooted to the spot in a daze. Imposing footsteps advanced toward the center. His mood sank quite a bit involuntarily. Lucius grew so angry he clenched his fists tightly. He could clearly see the face of the person across from him. Atlas swept a cold gaze down below. Lucius glared intently right at him. Atlas. His burning hatred felt as though it could pierce straight through the man. Two blazing hues glared fiercely at one another. The golden aura from Lucius made no effort to hide its murderous intent. The MC announced in a loud voice, "An unexpected VIP guest has arrived." Almost none of the nobles dared to look straight ahead. Why would he come to a place like this? He announced in a high voice, "The greatest swordsmanship family in the empire." Lilia could clearly feel the oppressive weight. What on earth is this pressure? The MC's voice echoed across the entire arena. "It is Duke Atlas, head of the Arclight family." Lucius almost lost control of his emotions standing before his enemy Atlas. Atlas only narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked down. "So you're that cursed child of the Elminster family. A magical household is ultimately nothing more than a bunch of meaningless fools." The corner of his mouth curved upward slightly, but Atlas clearly sensed the agitated emotions coming from him. "Those eyes aren't bad." He didn't pay it much mind. That killing intent is hard to believe it's coming from a kid. "Though I have no idea why it's aimed at me." Atlas merely murmured, "Interesting." Lucius gritted his teeth, forcing himself to endure it. He squeezed his chest tightly as if trying to crush it, his heart pounding relentlessly. Lucius tried his hardest to restrain himself, to make this man taste the most agonizing pain imaginable. Now is not the time. The MC suddenly shouted in excitement. "What?" He shattered the tense atmosphere. "We've just received some breaking news." The MC shouted to grab the entire audience's attention. The winner of this tournament. Atlas had already settled comfortably into his seat, will be granted the right to personally duel Duke Atlas. The news dropped like a bombshell. Lucius immediately snapped upright. It was said that laying eyes on it even once in a lifetime was exceedingly rare. Many nobles also leaped to their feet. The Empire's strongest swordsmanship. What a chance to witness that moment. The MC chuckled with malicious delight. This gets me so pumped. Cheers erupted simultaneously throughout the stands. Lucius suddenly straightened his posture even more. He whispered very softly to himself, this couldn't possibly be more perfect. A burning ambition flared up within Lucius. Right here, before the eyes of the entire empire, he broke into a deranged smile. I'm going to build your grave. The MC announced loudly, and now, it's time for the Block A finals. Felix sneered mockingly. I never thought a dumb kid like this would actually make it to the finals. Lucius looked as though he could already see a bright future ahead, just a little longer. Just a moment more, and I'll make you feel true despair. His eyes were heavily weighed down by the reflection of Atlas. The opponent radiated an azure spiritual glow, daring to look away while standing right in front of me? Felix arrogantly condensed an energy sphere. You must really have a death wish. He bellowed with smug self-satisfaction as if victory were already his. Then granting your wish will just be an act of mercy. Die. An overwhelming wave of power surged forth as if to sweep away the entire arena. Lucius didn't even bother to dodge. He stood right there and let the explosion hit him. Yet, Lucius wasn't even scratched in the slightest. Felix's jaw dropped in sheer terror. You blew away my ultra-high-density magic? He coldly raised his arm high. Before Lucius unleashed two sharp crescents of spiritual energy. The oppressive weight was more terrifying than any previous attack. The nobles in the stands had to step back a few paces due to the pressure radiating from the stage. A moment later, he could be seen clutching his head and trembling. Felix pitifully begged to surrender. I lost. I yield. So please don't kill me. Lilia couldn't believe her own eyes. What on earth is that? Noah also broke out in a cold sweat. Lucius's spiritual energy is completely different from before. I've never seen anything like this. Lucius cast a cold glance toward his target. The MC seemed already accustomed to his talent. To think a mere 12-year-old boy could make it this far. The spiritual energy was absorbed once again. He declared in a high voice, the biggest dark horse of this tournament, the winner of Block A is none other than Lucius. His eyes overflowed with murderous intent. Just one more match. Atlas was still observing the battle from above. The organizers arranged things swiftly. Next up is the Block B finals. A powerful fighter ranked 10th at the Royal Academy, someone who even won this tournament in the past. He stepped forward with a stern expression, Gladys Foreign. Gladys's opponent had yet to appear, the mysterious rookie. She snapped awake in the lounge upon hearing her name, Estelle. He called out several times, Estelle. Please step into the arena. The nobles jeered mockingly. Did he run away? Facing Gladys, you really can't blame him though. Estelle dragged her stuffed rabbit outside at long last. Is it my turn already? He furrowed his brows tightly upon seeing her tiny stature. The spectators also whispered incessantly among themselves. Hey, are you okay? She leisurely let out a massive yawn. Estelle clearly looked as though she had just woken up from sleep. The MC felt somewhat helpless as he asked, Are you ready? Down below, she gave a few sleepy nods. The two spiritual pillars were fully charged. Alright, let's return to the Block B finals. Estelle looked practically indifferent to the match. Gladys silently steeled his resolve. Sorry, little girl. I won't hold back just because you're younger than me. The MC shouted the signal, match start. He confidently summoned magic circles into existence. At least I'll end this instantly so you don't have to suffer. They quickly encircled Estelle. Waves of power began to radiate outward, but she didn't show the slightest reaction. It seemed victory was firmly in Gladys's grasp. Suddenly, Estelle slowly parted her purple eyes. All the magic attacks he had prepared shattered into nothingness in a fraction of a second. The entire stands plunged into a dead silence. The MC stood frozen with a blank look of incomprehension. The nobles also turned deathly pale. Not even a trace of Gladys's body remained. Meanwhile, Estelle just kept on yawning. The little girl lowered her gaze slightly as if she were bored. After a long moment, the MC finally snapped back to his senses to conclude, Gladys is unable to continue fighting. Only a pool of bright red blood remained on the floor. The MC announced loudly, therefore, Estelle is the winner. The spectators were utterly stunned. What was that just now? Gladys was defeated in the blink of an eye. Atlas casually rested his chin on his hand as he listened. With Estelle advancing from Block B, she pulled her stuffed rabbit back into her arms. The finals were now set. Lucius took the initiative and stepped out onto the arena. The final match will be the two of you facing off. The countdown begins. The final match will be Estelle facing off against Lucius Elminster. Valerius seemed quite intrigued by this bout. Suddenly, a voice spoke up, causing him to grimace. Estelle jit red. I've been keeping an eye on her matches from the very beginning. Kathy leaned forward to get a better look, but I still can't grasp the principle behind her magic. So that's the look you're sporting, huh? Valerius said, annoyed. Is she still here? She happily added, she's the one who snagged the 4th spot in the rankings. Even though she rarely shows up at the academy, she won't be revealing her true abilities that easily. Kathy's gaze suddenly turned sharp. But there's just one thing bothering me. The announcement echoed, stirring the entire arena, and now, the final match of the Royal Arena tournament begins. Estelle was still yawning her head off. Her purple eyes emitted a faint, barely visible spark. I'm just so tired of these consecutive matches. Lucius braced himself and moved into his stance. She channeled her energy into a small rabbit. Let's end this quickly. Kathy, while hugging Lilia's neck, observed carefully, as I thought. Estelle alone is reacting to their spiritual energy detection. She can see it very clearly. Kathy caught on with a hunch. Could her magic be? The rabbit lowered its center of gravity, and it lunged forward with unbelievable power. The rabbit aimed straight for Lucius with pinpoint accuracy. He tilted his body to dodge easily, so fast, it kept on attacking. Lucius effortlessly evaded the rabbit time and again. He moved cautiously while analyzing the situation seriously. This power, and this precision, too. Lucius could state with certainty, this isn't just simple magic manipulation. He looked closely at the spiritual energy radiating from both Estelle and it. This is probably high-level magic that copies the caster's own source of spiritual energy onto objects and controls them all at once. Lucius formed a strategy based on that. In that case, he ignored the rabbit and lunged straight toward Estelle. I'll take down the original as quickly as I can. She looked completely calm. The rabbit rushed forward, attempting to block Lucius. He easily tackled it down. Lucius kicked out firmly, sending the rabbit that was blocking his path flying. The corner of Estelle's mouth twitched slightly. She was now within his striking range. Lucius gathered his strength and brought his attack crashing down. However, another rabbit suddenly appeared. His attention was diverted. A large crater was created right in the middle of the arena floor. The spectators turned pale at the sight. The MC held his breath, waiting. Unbelievable. A second rabbit has appeared. It looks like Lucius reacted too slowly. There was a sudden movement amidst the dust and smoke. He landed gently on the ground, completely unharmed. The MC joyfully declared, he's still alive. He survived with barely a scratch. It seems the MC didn't notice the large bruise on Lucius's right arm. The entire stands roared with excitement. Estelle finally stood up. You're pretty good, aren't you? She smiled with genuine interest. Just for you. I'll show you all of them at once. Lucius knew this spelled trouble. The spiritual energy around Estelle gradually grew denser. A teddy bear emerged from beneath the ground. He couldn't help but be startled in surprise. They followed one after another onto the arena. The MC involuntarily broke out in a cold sweat. What is this? This is a nightmare. Atlas maintained a calm expression from start to finish. The MC shrieked in terror. There are 6 of those terrifying rabbits. Estelle hummed happily. Everyone, she flashed a gentle smile, go out and play with him. Lucius felt nearly overwhelmed by this combat force. He regained his composure to handle the situation. Lucius skillfully dodged the stabs and slashes from the stuffed toys. He used his spiritual energy at the right moment to deflect them. Lucius was still holding his own well. The stuffed toys were incredibly aggressive, aiming for his weaknesses. Lucius slipped up and took damage. At this rate, I won't last long. 2 stuffed toys closed in on him simultaneously. Lucius used his own spiritual energy to wipe them out. Both were paralyzed instantly. Suddenly, he realized something. These things have no eyes. Lucius reached the conclusion that means they're likely attacking based on a spiritual energy source. He quickly came up with a countermeasure. Then, Lucius spun his body around as if to catch something. He clenched his fist tightly and mysteriously. Atlas noticed the movement. The entire group of stuffed toys rushed toward Lucius. Noah shouted in a panic, he's surrounded. Estelle licked her lips with relish. It's over. He suddenly lowered his center of gravity. Lucius smiled and tightened his grip. He unleashed a wave of spiritual energy upward. The cracked ground glowed with a constant blue hue. The stuffed toys were instantly drawn in, and they all changed targets simultaneously. The MC gasped in surprise. What just happened? He looked genuinely intrigued. The rabbits are suddenly attracted to the intense light appearing in the sky. They're being pulled toward it. Lucius couldn't help but smile. I've got you. The stuffed toys were tearing into the bait he had thrown out. Lucius gathered his strength and struck toward them. All 6 were destroyed in one fell swoop. He smiled slightly in satisfaction. Lucius landed gently on the ground. He stood opposite Estelle, who was now weaponless. The stands roared in delight once more. Kathy even covered her mouth in shock. No way. Her sharp eyes noticed immediately. Did he mimic and copy Estelle's spiritual energy in that very moment? Kathy saw 2 distinct spiritual energy currents, one from Lucius, the other from a small stone in his hand. Lucius still wasn't truly satisfied. It's still a far cry from her actual replication, but he didn't pay it much mind. Whatever. I've succeeded in clearing out those rabbits. Lucius stood confidently and upright. The match is over. Estelle still looked as calm as ever. She involuntarily burst into laughter. He felt a powerful surge of spiritual energy. A terrifying power radiated from around Estelle. She grew increasingly more powerful than before. It's been a long time since someone made me get serious. But do you understand what this means? The shadows returned to Estelle. All of the rabbit's spiritual energy will be concentrated into me. Lucius's face paled upon hearing this. The spectators were all left agape in shock. The MC furrowed his brows and shouted loudly, "What is that? What on earth is that?" A giant rabbit with her at the center appeared. He grew so tense that he broke into a cold sweat.